Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the D and WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku's journey took a darker turn. All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. When you are destined to make it big, there are often signs along the way, hinting to your eventual rise to whatever top you strive for. Whether that be an abnormally huge ick, a unique personality, or a special ability no one else possesses. I'm sorry ma'am, but according to our diagnostics, it would appear as though your child is. Well, how do I sugarcoat this? Power deficient, non-special, press skip in the character creation screen. Quirkless, your son in quirkless, or in this case, a lack thereof. Mom, I can still be a hero, right? Asked a young, teary-eyed Izuku. Oh, of course Izuku, I'm sure you can. You'll be a great hero, just like your dad. His mother replied. Izuku never met his father, but his mother always brings the hero subject back to him. Apparently, he was one of the world's first quirkless heroes. Sure, he was just a late bloomer and developed fire breath later on, but she still emphasizes on how much of a great man he is. Will I ever get to meet him one day? Asked Izuku, wiping off his tears. Is he still working overseas? Of course Izuku, you'll get to meet him soon enough. Inko replied, smiling through her own tears. Yet despite all her words of reassurance, Izuku always felt as though she was hiding something. Still, it gave him hope, and that's all he needed. Years later, Oi Deku, what you doing? A grown-up Bakugo stared down at him. Oh, Kaken, hi, I was just, Izuku mumbled, clutching his notebook. It was her mother's birthday gift to him. It even came with 2 built-in bookmarks that were shaped like All Might's signature hair. Gimme that. Bakugo snatched his notebook right out of his palm. Hey, give that back, Izuku cried. Why? Bakugo said in a sadistic fashion. Aren't we friends? I know what you're gonna do. Give that back before you what? Bakugo cut him off. 2 other guys showed up, his friends probably. Well, look at that. This kid wants to be a hero. Bakugo yelled out loud as everyone in the classroom laughed in unison. Isn't he that quirkless pipsqueak? Someone in the crowd laughed. And won't you look at that? He actually sketched a hero costume in here. Laughed another. Does his lack of quirk also explain his lack of originality? Mighty, what kind of stupid hero name is that? Laughed another. I mean, my mouth's a literal megaphone and I can come up with a more original hero name for myself. This is normally where Izuku would fight back, thrashing, but he has been laughed at and beat up so many times that he was used to it at this point. Instead, he just raised his arms helplessly as the crowd pelted him with erasers and crumbled up candy bar wrappers. Listen Deku, Katsuki called out, grabbing Izuku by shoulder, his fists sizzling with fire and Izuku's uniform started to emit black smoke. Don't bother with this hero business and just go find a hole to die in, okay? He said, with a menacing smile and in an eerily calm tone. And Izuku nearly pissed himself at Katsuki's aggressiveness. The blonde student took his notebook, blasting it to smithereens in front of him and tossing the remains out the window. Izuku, letting out an exasperated gasp, ran out to the window in hopes that the notebook was still intact. While this happened, the rest of the classroom left, as class was soon dismissed to the sound of the bell. Oi, don't you think you're being a little hard on him, Katsuki? Asked one of the students. Like anyone would care what happens to that insignificant piece of crap. Katsuki laughed back. Besides, if we're actually smart, Izuku turned around, overhearing Katsuki. Then he could just take a dive off the building and be born with a quirk in his next life. Katsuki laughed. Izuku, angered, lunged at him, only to freeze in fear as Katsuki ignited sparks in his hands. Yeah, were you gonna do something? Katsuki asked sadistically. My dad made it as a pro hero while he was still quirkless. So you're wrong, Izuku yelled out, despite his mom telling him to keep that a secret for reasons beyond him. Oh, your old man, a quirkless hero. Don't make me laugh, Katsuki replied. Where is he anyways? You always use him as an excuse yet we never hear about him. Gee, that's because he works overseas. I may not met him before but he is a miserable failure that your old hag refused to admit. Katsuki cut off, grabbing him by the neck and picking him up. Listen here Deku. The only 2 reasons why a man stays away from his own family for so long is either because he's actually having an affair behind your mom's back or that he's dead. Let me go Kaken, Izuku uttered, as Katsuki dragged him towards the open window. Hey, Bakugo, what are you doing? Asked some of his classmates. Katsuki ignored said classmates, instead slamming Izuku against the wall, knocking the wind of him. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it were the latter, because nowadays, someone quirkless, said Katsuki, opening the window. Somebody help me, Izuku cried, looking at the teacher, who was on his phone, not even acknowledging what was going on. Is better off dead, Katsuki yelled out, throwing Izuku out the window. Bakugo, what have you done? You could have killed him. The other classmates yelled out. So, Katsuki retorted nonchalantly, one less worthless piece of shit in the world, big deal. This is too messed up, even for you. They added. Well then, what are you gonna do about it? Katsuki asked, giving them a killer glare as shivers ran down their spines. Something happened? Asked the teacher. The other students looked at the teacher, then back at Katsuki, who was giving them the dead stare. And nothing, sir, they muttered, too scared to tell him what happened as Katsuki passed them. That's what I thought. Izuku struggled to get back up. Miraculously, he landed in the dumpster, the trash breaking his fall, but also soaking him in a cold, dark green sludge whose mere smell made him wish the fall had dealt some kind of damage his olfactory cortex. Trying to get up, he found his notebook, or what's left of it, in his right hand. Charred and burned up, he clenched onto it, trying not to cry. He failed. On his way back, the words of Katsuki resonated within him as he felt his insecurities swelling and weighing him down like a ball and chain. However, his period of moping was interrupted as a greenish sludge attacked him out of the blue, encasing him in its goopy body and attempting to enter every orifice of his body. Oi kid, you wouldn't have seen my wallet by any chance, have you? You tiny burglar. The sludge man yelled out in rage. Can't a homeless sewer waste guy enjoy his dumpster nap without kids landing on them and snatching their wallets? Looking to what he initially thought were the charred remains of his notebook, Izuku quickly realized that what he was holding was in fact a very old and moldy wallet. Aye, sewer. Detroit. Suddenly, both parties heard a third voice nearby. Just then, for a brief moment, Izuku saw a glimpse of his very idol before a giant fist covered his field of view. Smash! A massive gust of wind followed suit. When Izuku came back to the realm of conscience, he saw that the sludge man was defeated and trapped in an empty soda bottle, and that the one responsible for said feat was none other than the living legend of the hero world, the symbol of peace himself. All Might, Izuku uttered in awe. Ha ha ha. Never fear, kid, for I am here. All Might called out in booming laughter. In case you're in need of an autograph, I couldn't seem to find any notebooks on you, but your wallet did just fine. My wallet? Izuku asked, noticing that the sludge man's wallet was still in his hand, and that All Might had signed the front of it. Well, I'd love to stick around, but I've got places to be. You're quite lucky. Not many kids have the bragging rights of being saved by me. In fact, some rich kids even pay other people to attack them just so I can save them. So cherish this moment, said All Might, as he walked off, seemingly in a hurry. Goodbye, little fan. Wait, Izuku yelled out, grabbing onto his ankle. Blies wahats huas. Kid, let go. You're gonna make me. All Might called out, before coughing out a handful of blood. Damn. While Izuku's encounter with All Might was still underway, Katsuki and a few of his goons left the convenience store below where All Might leaped off from. Katsuki, don't you think you went a little overboard there? Asked one of his classmates, smoking a cigar. Hey, it's his fault for being born quirkless, replied Katsuki, kicking over a can, which flew into a little kid's face, knocking him over. Oi, the little kid cried, as his nose bleed. You're in my way. Fuck off, Katsuki hissed, as he proceeded to kick the kid out of his path. Geez, what's with you today, Katsuki? You're a lot more of an asshole than usual, said his classmate, blowing smoke into the face of said kid. Kid just reminded me of Deku, replied the blonde-haired teen, with his beady eyes full of stupid dreams. It pisses me off, he ranted, before turning around, and quit smoking. If we get caught, it's going on my record too. However, his two other classmates froze in fear, not because of Katsuki, rather because of something behind him. Wallet. I'm sorry, kid, said the shriveled-up shell that once was the top hero. I know you mean well, but people like you really aren't cut out for this kind of job. Izuku froze at the revelation. It was shocking enough to find All Might in his true form, but now it seemed as though his entire world was crumbling down on him. Tear ran down his face as he tried to find the right words, trying to say anything, whether it would be in denial, despair, desperation, but all that could come out with soundless gasps. He didn't want to admit it, but it seemed as though Katsuki, whether he liked it or not, was right about him. Hey, if it makes you feel any better, I heard that you accept quirkless into their general education department. Maybe you could find work as a police officer or something. But please, don't tell anyone about what you saw, okay? Said All Might, heading towards the roof exit. Wait, Izuku cried out. I have a friend, well, not friend, more like person I knew since childhood who told me quirkless people are completely worthless at this day and age. Is that true? Am I really that worthless? Asked Izuku, trying his best not to burst into tears for the 5th time today. A shadow loomed over All Might's eyes. I really can't answer that. Please say it ain't so, All Might, Izuku begged, even more desperate than before. Please just shut up and leave me be. All Might replied, his fists clenched and shaking. I don't want to be a useless person. I want to change this world for the better. Izuku called out. Then you shouldn't have been born quirkless. All Might snapped at him, reverting to his muscular form. Only this time, he wasn't smiling. Know your place, kid. Look around you. Do you really think you ever had a chance to make it big in this world? Be a little realistic and give up, will you? Never had Izuku seen All Might in such an imposing form. The aggression emanating off of him, making his legs shake in fear. That sight, it was just like Katsuki's. He's the same, Izuku thought. He's no different from the rest of them. Suddenly, All Might reverted back to his previous form. Only this time, his face seemed a lot more racked with guilt. I am sorry if I'm being harsh, said All Might in a scornful tone, but if it makes you feel any better, I was never that much of a hero myself to begin with. I hope to never see your face again. Goodbye, kid. As All Might left the stairs, Izuku turned the other way, heading towards the edge of the building. All of the emotions he was suppressing until then swelled up, ripping into the walls of his sanity. As minutes passed, he knew All Might was long gone. Just like that, he snapped. Damn it. Izuku yelled for what felt like hours. His fists clenched so hard that blood came out as he collapsed, punching the ground until his fists were bloody. While this happened, All Might walked down the streets of the Yokohama shopping district, feeling guilty for what he did. What pushed him to act that way? I should really apologize to the kid. All Might muttered to himself. It's not his fault, yet I snapped at him. Looking at his scar, a sudden flashback came to him. Take a good look, all of you. All for one, Destro, even the Shirogane family, all your years, shaping this world into what it is today shall be all for nothing. Witness this world's rebirth. An injured All Might, on the near verge of death, watched the ominous figure looming over him as a massive beam of light that pierced the clouds formed white cracks in the sky over a rather secluded island near Okinawa. Everything that happened after those events are a blur in All Might's memory, almost like a traumatic moment. All he could remember of that event were two things: that man was not all for one, and he was quirkless. As Izuku walked home over 20 minutes after his mental breakdown, he hoped for nothing more than to leap into the arms of his caring mother and having a lovely home-cooked meal. Then again, Katsuki might be right about what happened to his father, so he needed to ask her about him as well. But honestly, Izuku just wanted for the day to be over with, and for it to be nothing more than a distant nightmare tomorrow. Just then, screams rung out over the street he was passing by. Looking over, he noticed the sludge villain from earlier. A villain attack yelled some of the civilians as pro-heroes struggled to subdue the now rampaging villain. Wallet, yelled the sludge villain. Neat. Wallet, you're far past the bargaining stage, villain. The heroes yelled back. Now surrender quietly and this can all be resolved without violence. I'll snap all of your necks if I don't get my wallet back. I need it. What could be in this wallet that he needs so badly anyways? Thought Izuku, taking the moldy wallet out of his pocket. All it has are a few bus tickets, expired condoms, 12 yen in this ruined business card. He took a good look at the business card. There was something written at the back, some kind of address. Just then, loud explosions distracted him before he could fully react in time. Wait, explosions? But that would mean, Izuku thought, running to the front, Kaken. He saw him, Katsuki, writhing about in agony, struggling with the sludge villain. He looked so helpless and pathetic, it was almost cathartic to Izuku. In any normal cases, he would have tried something, anything to help him. But now, all he wanted to do was laugh. Hehehe. Izuku chuckled. Hey, what's so funny about this? Asked some of the people in the crowd. And no, it's just. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. It's ha 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 ha. Izuku tried to retort, but he couldn't contain his laughter. Suddenly, he felt a stinging pain as one of the civilians dragged him far away from the crowd and into an alleyway, beating the crap out of him. You wanna laugh? Do it in a hospital? Yelled the group of men. Izuku laughed hysterically as the group of men beat him to a pulp. They got tired and left, as the villain was later subdued thanks to the arrival of Endeavor, who was just passing by. Mad, Izuku muttered. What was that? The group of men asked, turning around, still pissed off. This world, so mad, Izuku uttered, bloody and covered in dirt and bruises. It's hilarious. Ha. Oh, hilarious is it? Asked the man, grabbing a nearby rusted crowbar. Then I bet your funeral will be a laughing stock. Hey, chill man, said one of that guy compatriots. Shut it, crazy kids piss me off. If they don't belong in an asylum, then they are better off dead. Izuku looked at the three of them. Once again, Katsuki and his goons came to mind. Deja vu, Izuku muttered. A man lifted his crowbar, ready to smash Izuku's head in like a watermelon. Suddenly, a shadow loomed in, and for a brief moment, Izuku saw a dash of silky, blonde hair. Just then, the three men were dead, their throats slit with 28 stab wounds each. Before Izuku could tell what happened, the figure, which he could deduce was a girl, walked up to him, revealing what seemed like a sailor uniform. Ew, you're cute, the girl said in a flirtish way. Who? Hey, what's going on here? Asked a random cop. Who are you? "Boo, you cops are no fun," the girl called back, before disappearing into the shadows. As more cops arrived, they let out a gasp in horror. They immediately picked Izuku up, calling an ambulance as Izuku was transported to a nearby hospital. It was around 8 p.m. when the police pulled up to Inko's home. Having learned the news, the woman rushed to the hospital so quickly. The police that were meant to escort her got to the hospital only 30 minutes after she did, despite the fact that she ran there on foot and they were in a police cruiser. "Izuku," Inko cried out, "my baby. Where are you?" "Ma'am, I can take you there, so please be patient." A nurse ran in, holding 2 buckets below Inko to catch all the tears flooding from her, 1 for each eye. As Inko was finally allowed into Izuku's room, she saw that Izuku was covered in bandages and unconscious. "Who did this?" Inko was, still in tears. "We are not quite sure yet," replied the nurse. "There are reports of a certain serial killer roaming these parts. Some suspect it was her. I assure you, the police are working extra hard to catch this criminal." "I don't care about the criminal. I only want Izuku to be okay," Inko cried back, shaking the nurse. "His injuries are not as severe as you might think. It's all superficial. In fact, he will be dispatched tomorrow if all goes well," said the nurse. Hearing this, Inko let out a sigh of relief as she sat next to Izuku's bed, singing a soothing melody, one he hasn't sung for years. "All you need is love, love, love is all you need." Memories of the first time her husband sang this song to her flooded her mind. Suddenly, a fear loomed over her as she suddenly remembered what happened all those years ago. Holding the hand of his only son, she whispered to him, "You will always be my baby. I love you, Izuku." The next day, most of Izuku's injuries have already mostly healed. He was shortly discharged. While walking home, Inko remained silent for a while, feeling guilty for not being there for her only son when he needed it. "Izuku," Inko said in a worried tone, "if you're going through anything, please don't hide it from me. I can help you." Izuku, on the other hand, shook his head. "I'm fine, Mom, I'm fine. I just need some time alone." Izuku replied. "Alone?" asked Inko. It's been a tough day. I really just need to go somewhere to clear my head," Izuku said, veering off course. "Izuku, where are you going? Please don't get hurt again," Inko cried, latching onto him. "I'm just going to the shopping center. It's a Saturday and I heard there's a sale going on," said Izuku. "I'm feeling in the mood for some katsudon anyways." "Of course," Inko replied with energy. "Let's go get some." "Where do you want to go?" "No restaurant makes katsudon like how you make them, Mom," Izuku replied. "Let's go for homemade." "Great, let's go. I'll buy the meat. You get yourself some veggies and maybe even some snacks too while you're on it," Inko replied, handing him a wad of cash. "Thanks, Mom. Race you there," Izuku replied, feeling a brief moment of happiness coming back to him as he raced his mom to the shopping district, something he hasn't done since childhood. At the shopping district, the crowd was bustling on a bright sunny day. The breeze of spring, sending crisp gusts of fresh air, ruffling the algae green hair of the young boy. Staring at the bustling crowd, making out each and every individual quirks and subconsciously laughing at the ones unfortunate enough to be born with alarm clocks as ears. Yet, in this bustling crowd, a sense of isolation started to dawn on him once more. He felt like an outcast within this giant crowd, not special enough to be considered even as another brick in every abstract-looking wall. It wasn't easy to admit, but every word people said to put him down in the past, every insult and every pity are finally catching on to him. "Goddamn wind," cried some passerby about his age, snapping him out of his trance. "It's messing up my hair. I spent so much time brushing so wouldn't look like a porcupine." "You should have used hairspray, buddy, the strong kind," said the other. "Oh, trust me, it would take a whole can to immobilize my long hair," replied the other. Izuku didn't much attention as he was approaching his destination, the local farmhouse grocery store. He used to always go there as a kid for the capsule machines that dispensed hero collectibles when he was a kid. How naive he was back then. "And remember, kids," said a new debuting hero, playing on TV, "anyone can be a hero. Take it from me, L'Oreal, and my new Elora vitamins. Rich in vitamins and ass-kicking." Despite it being a common and cheesy promo ad, its sight immediately made Izuku feel unwell. All Might immediately came back to mind as he collapsed, hyperventilating. Not wanting to cause a scene, he rushed to the nearest washroom, vomiting into the sink as soon as the door closed. Voices of his former aggressors resonating in his head. "You'll never be a hero, Deku. Katsuki, shut up. A hero? Is this some kind of joke, Mr. Midoriya?" His teacher, "Shut up. Sorry, kid. Be more realistic and give up, will you?" "All Might, shut up," Izuku yelled, punching the mirror hard enough to crack it, before tears poured out once again, along with blood from his fists. Suddenly, shrieks of excitement were heard outside the store as the sound of movement caught Izuku's attention. Heading out the washroom, he noticed that the store he was in was deserted, as most of the shoppers ran out. Curious as to why, his query was soon answered as he found a huge group gathering at the mall's center square. There was a villain attack. It's Eloriel. One girl cheered. Oh great, that twat is here, thought Izuku as he nevertheless approached the scene of the crime to see yet another hero make his debut. However, this time, the villain was nothing huge. No giant monster or living mass of toxic ooze. Just some dude who hardly even looked like a villain, more like an improvised thug. The villain struggled desperately to fight off the hero, who seemed to have some sort of hair manipulation quirk, only to be on the receiving end of a one-sided massacre. For a little bit, Izuku almost felt bad for the villain. Kick his ass, Eloriel, shouted the crowd, completely insensitive to the battered and bruised-up man standing before them, who had long stopped to fight back and was just trying to run away. All this for a stolen wallet. The man weakly coughed. Seriously? Break his legs. The fans cried. Grab his dick and twist it, yelled one guy. Give him the all-dick twist. With every cheer of the crowd, Izuku became more and more disgusted. Looking back, he saw himself lying on the blood-dampened asphalt as Katsuki beat him mercilessly as groups of students just stood, watched and laughed. This entire scene, it was way too familiar for him, making him bite his bottom lips, flinching at the thought of what must be going through that man's head as he is being both attacked and humiliated while knowing that the very people that were meant to protect him are beating him down for everyone to see. Not wanting to see how everything ends, Izuku decided to leave the scene early. Just then, the man was able to land a lucky hit, staggering the hero before running into the crowd. Look out, he's coming right for us. Some of the people yelled in fear as they made way for him, too afraid to approach as the thug ran approximately 5 feet before collapsing at the foot of Izuku. Looking at the man, Izuku froze. He looked so helpless, so afraid, almost like himself. Looking back to the hero, he could have sworn he saw Katsuki for a brief moment. He's the same, Izuku thought, tears running down his face. That so-called hero, All Might, Kaken. They're all the same. I don't want to steal anymore, uttered the man, desperately trying to crawl away. I'll find a job, even if it's a bad one. I just need money for my sick brother. Please, I don't want to die. This world is better off without villains like you, said Eloriel. Honestly, I don't care what the capture protocol says anymore. Your kind disgust me for merely existing. He scoffed as he used his hair to pick up a massive slab of stone. Vanish for the sake of justice. Suddenly, almost an instinct, Izuku grabbed the man and, using some unknown amount of strength, lifted him over his shoulder and made a beeline for anywhere that wasn't within a mile from Eloriel. So you had an accomplice, Eloriel said to himself. Big deal, I'll just... Kaya, you were so cool, Eloriel. Give us an autograph, please. A huge amount of fans came rushing in. Buffered by the crowd, Eloriel used his hair to lift himself off the ground. Seeing Izuku around a dozen meters away, the hero deduced he can stroke his ego for at least a little while for how slow the kid was, and came back down to sign some autographs and pose for photos. Meanwhile, the man Izuku saved came back to the realm of conscience, looking at the kid, who was struggling to lift him up. Just then, he stopped himself, dragging Izuku by surprise into a closed-down and empty storeroom that seemed to be an old barber shop. All right, kid. What the hell? Why did you save me? Asked the man. Izuku looked at him in shock as he struggled to get the words out. Because, you were. Well, he stuttered. After about 5 seconds of incomprehensive gibberish, the man gave up, putting his hand to Izuku's mouth to shut him up. Listen, kid, I don't know why you jumped in to save me. Fact is, now the hero is after both of us and none of us are in fighting condition, unless you have some super overpowered quirk. So like it or not, but we must escape this mall before more reinforcements show up, said the man. What's your name, kid? Izuku, the kid stuttered. Izuku Midoriya. Well named Sachi Tsukiyama, replied the man. Now help me pull down this door shutter before that hair guy comes back. Suddenly, hair came out of the cracks from the floor, grabbing Sachi by the neck as the Eloriel came into the store. Did you really think you can run from me? Asked Eloriel, as he started to strangle Sachi. Now tell me, is this kid with you? Izuku fell back in fear, as he knew that Sachi would sell him out so that he could maybe escape. He knew this tactic, as so many kids used it in the past on him. Like when a few of Katsuki's goons shoplifted and pinned the blame on Izuku, so that he got all the blame. Fearing what's to come next, Izuku looked behind him for an exit, but found none. Instead, he armed himself with a pair of rusty barber scissors, backing up. However, what happened next came right out of the blue. No, he isn't, Sachi replied. He's just some kid I tried to take hostage, now so leave him alone. Is that so? Asked the hero. Izuku, however, felt so moved, as he struggled to hold onto his improvised weapon. How could that man be a villain? He didn't try to sell him out. He didn't threaten him, nor did he harm him. He felt like the textbook definition of innocent. So why was he the one being strangled? By a pro-hero no less. Why was he witnessing such injustice? Well, I guess I'll just leave him for the police to handle. Assisting a villain and escaping is a serious offense, Eloriel replied, suddenly strangling Sachi even harder. But you're not gonna end up in jail. Today's world has no need for useless people like you, if you can't even be a decent villain. he said, while flashing a sinister smile as Sachi started to cough out blood. Then you might as well not exist at all. Let him go, Izuku yelled out in rage, projecting all of his hatred onto this hero. No, this monster, as he plunged a pair of rusty barber scissors straight into Eloriel's stomach. Jaya, I've been stabbed, Eloriel yelled out in pain as he released Sachi. Great shot, kid. I can't believe you had it in you. Now let's get out of here, Sachi exclaimed in awe and excitement as he ran for the exit, only for the door shutters to close, causing him to run face first into said metal door. You're not going anywhere, Eloriel hissed, as he used part of his hair to pull the door shutters down and enclose the two inside the abandoned barber shop. The automatic lights flickered on, as the two frantically ran away from the hero in panic. Loaded with adrenaline, Izuku tore out of the scissors from Eloriel's stomach, causing blood to gush out before flailing the bloody weapon at him. This is what you get, you hear me? You fiend. You don't deserve the title hero, Izuku yelled in rage, slashing away at Eloriel, who turned to him in anger. Just then, Eloriel hair wrapped around Izuku's arm, tearing away the scissors and using them against him, holding them up to his throat. I'm not a hero, huh? Eloriel sneered, using his hair to stitch up the stab wound. Then what does that make you? A better person than you, Izuku spat back at him, giving him a mocking smile. Why, you little. Suddenly, what sounded like a gunshot was heard, as a hole formed in the wad of hair that entangled Izuku, dropping him to floor. Turning around, Sachi was seen, his pointer finger aiming at Eloriel, the tip smoking like a gun barrel. I'll have you know that my finger is loaded, boasted Sachi. And this next shot is going right for your head. Sachi Tsukiyama, quirk, psychic bullet. The user can fire bullets of pure kinetic energy from their fingertips. The bullets are stronger than your typical revolver, but much slower. As Izuku ran back, keeping his distance from Eloriel, Sachi fired 3 more times, sending bolts of red energy flying at the hero. To counter the upcoming attack, Eloriel used his hair to pick up and uproot nearly stools and chairs, throwing them in the way of the bullet as said furniture were distorted and deformed by the blast of Sachi's attack. Then, using them as weapons, he swung the damaged chairs like bludgeoning weapons, smashing Sachi into a wall. He swung again, hoping to continue his onslaught of attacks. But Sachi was able to parry said attacks by grabbing a nearby chair of his own, holding back his attacker's weapons. Hey, Izuku, could use a hand here, said Sachi. Now would be a good time to use your quirk. Izuku froze upon hearing those words, however. He had no quirks. His uncertainty started to come back to him. Could he really do it? Without a quirk, one was basically useless in this world. If he really did come from behind, Eloriel would just grab him too. It was no use, no matter how he looked at it. There was no way he could save Sachi. So he decided to tell the truth. At least then, he could justify why he was so useless. I'm sorry, Sachi. I forgot to tell you earlier, Izuku said in an apologetic tone. I'm quirkless. Sachi's eyes widened. You're quirkless, he uttered, as Eloriel was able to overpower him, grabbing him by the neck and smashing him through a wall, making him cough out blood. Well, that certainly doesn't come out as a surprise, laughed Eloriel, from one useless person to another. But hey, at least you have a quirk, he said to Sachi. You, on the other hand, kid, are so much worse. How does your kind even get up in the morning without your poor fragile spines giving away? Does it hurt when you breathe? I swear, it's almost like whoever made this world really hated 20% of its people and made them as worthless and as pathetic as possible. Those words dug deep into Izuku, as he, who was so full of energy and fighting spirit before, collapsed, his eyes hollow and hopeless. Just then, Sachi shot a bullet at Eloriel, grazing his cheek and causing enough pain for the man to drop him. Cut the crap, bore out, Sachi jabbed. No one's useless in this world, especially not you, Izuku. Izuku looked up, as Sachi ran in, grabbing Izuku by the head and looking directly into his eyes with a fierce and stern glare. Listen to me, Izuku. Don't listen to what everyone else says about you. The only one whose words truly matter come from those who care about you. And seeing how I dragged you into this mess, I guess it's my responsibility to tell you this as a person who genuinely cares about you, but you are not useless. You are Izuku Midoriya. The kid who, when no one else would, stepped in to save a man you didn't even know. The kid who, despite having no quirk, managed to wound a pro hero. Somewhere in you, you have a talent. So don't let anyone put you down, and find it so we don't get killed by this crazy-ass shampoo fanatic, exclaimed Sachi, as he Eloriel's hair wrapped around him and pulled him back away. Sometimes, the biggest problems in one's life have the simplest solution. After getting ridiculed for his entire life, hearing those words sparked a fire in Izuku's heart, one that was long put out. Tears once more came streaming down Izuku's face, but this time they were not of sadness. After those words were said, Izuku realized this man truly believes in him, and now all he can feel in his heart, beyond his fears and his insecurities, was gratitude. Just then, his left hand bumped onto a cylindrical object. He picked it up, looking at the label. Just then, he remembered a conversation he overheard just half an hour ago. I'm gonna enjoy tearing you limb from limb. Eloriel spat at Sachi. Suddenly, a white can came flying at them as Eloriel catched it midair. Why do you ever bother anymore? Sachi, shoot the can, Izuku yelled. As if by instinct, Sachi immediately obeyed, firing at the can as a massive cloud erupted from it, blinding Eloriel. What is this? The hero cried in pain as he tried to move his hair, but to no avail. Why? Why can't I move my hair? What have you done to my hair? Izuku, don't tell me. Hairspray, the extra strong type. Izuku replied, smiling with pride. He won't be able to move that hair for at least an hour. Damn you all. Eloriel yelled out. So, what was that about us being useless again? Asked Izuku, walking up to the hero, who could barely open his still burning eyes. You bastards. The hero yelled out in anger, pointing to Sachi. You're no better than that villain, kid. You hear me? You're a villain, just like that scumbag. That scumbag also happens to have a lighter, said Sachi, walking in with a lit lighter. And if I remember correctly, hairspray is very flammable. You wouldn't dare. Eloriel uttered in fear. You're pathetic. Izuku scoffed, acting all high and mighty, flaunting your power and using it to abuse the weak. You're far worse than any of us. Picking on people who have already surrendered for personal gains. You're no hero. Hearing this, Eloriel laughed. And you think you're any better? A quirkless loser who has just destroyed any chance he could have had at whatever decent future a quirkless piece of shit can get in this world. Face it, kid. You're just shooting yourself in the foot by doing this. You're no more than a villain, waiting to be put down. Izuku twitched in anger as he tore the lighter from Sachi's hand. Well, if I'm a villain, Izuku yelled, then you shouldn't be surprised when I do this. Kid, wait. Before Sachi could stop him, the lighter was thrown as the hero lit a blaze. The barely functioning lights finally wore out, as the burning body of Eloriel soon became the only source of light in the dark room. Amidst the screams of pain and agony coming from Eloriel, Izuku stared silently at the scene unfolding before him, with Sachi backing up in horror. In normal circumstances, he would be terrified, but now he felt it again, that impulse back when he saw Katsuki being attacked by the sludge villain. All he wanted to do was laugh. Heh, and laugh he did. The howls of police sirens were heard in the distance, as the fire from Eloriel's body started to spread. As this happened, Sachi tore open the door shutters, as he saw police entering the building. Hey kid, the police are coming, we have to go. Sachi yelled, kid. As he turned around, he saw Izuku, on his knees, hyperventilating as reality started to catch up to him. He just burned someone alive, and laughed. What was wrong with him? Was he even sane anymore? Suddenly, he felt a strong pull as Sachi's arms wrapped around him, lifting him up and carrying him away. When the police arrived on scene, the duo was long gone, leaving the place trashed and burning. As the fire department came rushing in, the police asked the nearby witnesses. Some kid ran in and attacked the hero, you say? Asked the police. Yeah, I dunno who he was. Just some weirdo, I guess. But Eloriel was so awesome. You should have seen him, said the civilian. Eloriel? Asked the policeman, before whispering to his partner officer. Wasn't he charged with tax fraud and adultery and had his hero license suspended? Apparently he paid off the media to erase all that from the news, replied the officer. Signing autographs and dressing up isn't illegal per se, but if he really did fight a villain, it goes against the law. Then find him. That man needs some serious scolding, ordered the police officer. Sir, we found him. Well, what's left of him? Yelled a policeman, running in on the second floor. Running up to the second floor, they gazed in horror as the paramedics who arrived with the fire department lead the two to the charred remains of the former hero. Are we sure this is Eloriel? Asked the police officer. My quirk allows me to instantly recognize a person's name and identity by merely touching anything with their genetic code. This is indeed him, said the paramedics. Hearing this, the officer pulled out a cigar from his pocket, lighting it and slowly released a cloud of smoke. Get the detective on the line, said the officer. We might have a new villain to add to the database. Izuku found himself in an alleyway. Not the most welcoming place to wake up in, but he was too emotionally drained to feel fear, or any emotion at all for that matter. All he wanted to do was fall back asleep and hope it was all just a bad dream. That man, it wasn't him, it couldn't be. He would never have enjoyed the suffering of others so thoroughly. Was it the satisfaction of finally fighting back that gave him such enjoyment? Was it the bloodlust, and just getting too into his role as a savior of who he believed was the real victim? He didn't want to think much. All he knew was whoever that was, he would prefer just keeping him locked deep within his subconscious. So you're finally awake, said a familiar voice. It was Sachi, who was sitting on a pile of boxes right across him. You're still here? Asked Izuku. I've been here, waiting for you to wake up, said Sachi. How long was I out? Asked Izuku. 2 hours. I wouldn't say from fatigue, rather emotional shock. responded Sachi, before springing upwards and rushing to Izuku. Now how about explaining to me what all that stuff was about? Izuku felt embarrassed for a bit, not knowing what to reply. He wasn't even sure what Sachi was referring to. I mean, those moves there. That much quick thinking. I mean, are you sure you're quirkless? Cause all that was way too crazy for a quirkless kid to pull off, exclaimed Sachi, bursting with excitement. Well, yeah, I don't even know why you're so impressed. I just threw hairspray at him then set him on fire, replied Izuku. He was a pro hero, and you totally whooped his ass. Man, I admire you, replied Sachi. Admire? He who was bullied since youth, laughed at for his ambitions, having his dreams crushed and grounded by those he cared about and admired. The only living human being, possibly, to have no quirks was admired by someone. Do you actually mean that? Asked Izuku. Of course I do, replied Sachi. I mean, look at you. You're a quirkless, stuttering, seemingly pathetic runt, facing off against someone trained in taking down threats to the general public at a regular basis. Yet you still had it in you to save the man everyone labeled as the bad guy while putting not only your reputation, but your own life on the line, just to save a good-for-nothing thug who in all likelihood you'll never meet again and would in normal circumstances mug someone in the near future. I honestly can't thank you enough. Sachi's ecstatic tone slowly dropped, as his voice became more and more shaky. Izuku then noticed tears were forming in his eyes as he dropped down crying. I just can't believe someone would actually save a lost cause like me, Sachi cried out in tears of gratitude. For a brief moment, Izuku almost saw his exact reflection in Sachi. He can't describe how it felt to be able to relate this much to how he was feeling. But what he said was something he simply couldn't let slide. Don't say that, Sachi, said Izuku. I appreciate the compliment, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm quirkless. There's really nothing in this world for me. Your admiration is at least something though, I admit. Nothing, Sachi exclaimed, grabbing Izuku by the shoulder. You managed to do all of that without the use of a quirk. I don't care what others say, because the fact that you managed to beat a pro hero with a handicap is something no one else can brag about. Quirks don't make you special, Izuku. It's you that make yourself special. Once again, Izuku was overwhelmed. His mother encouraged him so many times, saying that he can be anything in the past. Yet this was so different. It felt genuine, it felt honest, like this man really did believe in him. Although, something about all this just didn't feel right to Izuku. How could this be a villain? He was so cheerful, so encouraging, and he did what an actual hero, nay, the #1 pro hero and the man he admired all of his life couldn't do. He believed in him. How? Izuku asked, clenching his fists. How can they call you a villain? Kid, no one's ever believed in me. Not even my own mother, as well as she hides it. Yet the only person I met who actually shows this much compassion towards me is someone that would be behind bars. This isn't fair, Izuku cried out. Why is it that people like that bastard Eloriel can be called a hero yet people like you a villain, Sachi? It's not fair. Life's not fair, kid. I've been through enough of it to know that your fate is decided nowadays with the flip of a coin, said Sachi, sitting back down on a broken-down TV, and sadly, it seems as though you and I are the ones that called it wrong. Sachi, Izuku asked, how much of the villains we boo at and shun are like you? A lot more than you think, kid, replied Sachi. While we may look merciless on the outside, many of us are still human on the inside. Of course, there are hundreds of exceptions, but for the most part, we were just born under the wrong star. Whether it was abusive parents, a poor family, or having a family member that holds a criminal record. The sad part is, due to these circumstances, we were never able to live a normal life, so we rob and sometimes even kill just to get by on life. We are the ones heroes should be helping. Yet they prey on us like we were never welcome in the first place. So, people like us are just fated to become villains? Asked Izuku, in disbelief, sounding more and more distressed. Honestly, with how things are today, the truth may be even uglier than the answer yes, replied Sachi, punching the wall. This isn't right, you're an amazing kid. Izuku Midoriya. Yeah, Izuku. Man, I never thought of things like this, laughed Sachi. This world is really messed up, isn't it? I mean, you're brilliant, Izuku, not to mention brave and, to be honest, kinda reckless and hot-headed. I admire that. Yet this world seems to be heavily against your success. But honestly, don't lose hope, okay, kid? Just because the odds are against you doesn't mean that there aren't people out there that will be on your side. I mean, I exist, don't I? Just remember, kid, you're the master of your own destiny, so don't you ever get put down by anyone but yourself. As he said that, he got up, slowly walking away. Wait, where are you going? Asked Izuku. If the cops catch you and I talking, they'll take you for an accomplice and arrest you. I can't let that happen, so just forget about be okay. I'm just a burden to you. Go out there and achieve your dreams, I believe in you, said Sachi, giving him a thumbs up and a smile that, for that one moment, was shining even brighter than All Might's. Take care. But, what's gonna happen to you? Asked Izuku. I dunno. Maybe I get caught and thrown in jail. Maybe I escape to fight another day. replied Sachi in a jockish tone, or who knows, maybe a truck will kill me and send me into another world where I get a harem and slay the Demon King. No, Izuku uttered out, no. You don't deserve this. You're a better person than anyone I've ever met. You deserve better than to be just another villain of the week. Please, let me help you. Help me, asked Sachi. Then make that your goal if that's what you want. Turn this world on its head, Izu bro. Soon, Sachi disappeared from sight. After that, he heard gunshots, then sirens, then running. While this happened, Izuku stood in place, before dropping to the ground. All this repressed sorrow and anger flooding out at once, as he cried. He cried for the injustice he suffered, the terrible and nigh inescapable fate he was cursed with, the world that seemed to hate him so, and for a man that deserved more than to just be called a villain and tossed aside. So that's all we're worth to you heroes, Izuku said to himself, to be preyed upon and used to fuel your fame, to create conflict and to endanger lives so that you may prosper. I can't believe in you anymore. I can't believe in any heroes anymore. No, if it's a villain you want, Izuku yelled to the top of his lungs, cursing the world, then it's a villain you'll all fucking get. Izuku, where have you been? I was so worried, and Ko cried out, lunging into Izuku the second he came into sight. The worried mother had been searching for Izuku for the past 2 hours, unable to find him. She contacted the police, who sent out a search team when a sudden villain attack hit. For her son to show up after all this time was the most relief she's ever felt. Sorry mom, I went shopping and got a little distracted, Izuku lied. Let me guess, a rare All Might merch, asked Ko. Yeah, that's right, Izuku choked out. Well, I bought the meat. Get ready for the best meal only a loving mother can cook, Ko said, pumping her fists. Let's go then, said Izuku, excited. I'm starving. Once home, Ko started to cook immediately. While this happened, Izuku went to his room, looking at all the All Might merchandise. All he felt was disgust. It's time for change, Izuku said to himself, not only to my room, but to this world. As he tore away the posters and action figures, he started to write down new ideas for his future. He couldn't just go out and start attacking heroes right away, so he needed to start small. Luckily, unlike most hero fans, he spent his entire life making notes about heroes, along with their strengths, weaknesses, and classifying them in categories to know how to optimally use them and how to counter them. While it was just a hobby, he unintentionally became more knowledgeable about quirks than any average person in Japan. But just knowing won't be enough, hence why he knew he can't engage the heroes directly. He was gonna have to have other villains do his dirty work. Knowing that, he needed his own identity. After several pages of crumbled up paper, he finally found one. Mightless was finally born. Another day, another villain attack and another hero debut. This time around, several heroes have arrived on scene, as a man with devil horns came running out of a burning office holding a gun and a bloody suitcase, being chased down by several heroes. Listen here, villain. We have the entire perimeter surrounded. Just give up and our job will be a whole lot easier, ordered the cops. Screw you guys, replied the villain. You have no idea what it was like working in that company. The boss exploited the hell out of me, forcing me to work overtime even though I had a 39-degree fever and docking my pay for showing up only 2 minutes late. It was a black company through and through. As the heroes were closing in, the placed his palm on the floor as spires of flames erupted from below, slowing the heroes down long enough for the villain to escape through an alleyway. Damn it, he's getting away, cursed one of the heroes, after him. As Devil Horn villain ran, however, he came face to face with some kid, wearing what seemed like an All Might hoodie, but spray-painted black and red and wearing a surgical mask. You look like you could use some help, said the kid. Who the hell are you? Asked the Devil Horn man, pointing his gun at him. Whoa there, I'm trying to help you here, the kid exclaimed. Listen, I know the heroes you're fighting. They are part of the Fearless Hero Brave's hero agency. However, their main hero, Brave, has an irrational fear of bugs. Okay, thanks for the trivia, kid. Now move over before. Found you, villain. A voice came from behind. Looks like you got yourself an accomplice too. Oh crud, the kid said out loud. The villain tried to grab the kid as hostage, until he saw him holding something up to him. Here, use this, said the kid, revealing a jar full of cockroaches. You are finished, the pro hero yelled out, ignoring the two's interaction as he charged at them while striking a cheesy pose. Have a taste of my hero kick. Suddenly, a jar came flying at him. Unfazed, he shattered it with a karate chop. However, upon breaking it, the creepy crawlers inside the jar were set free and flew all over him, crawling down his arm, chest, and even underneath his sleeves. Suddenly, the hero stopped dead in his tracks as his face contorted into a look of horror. His mouth opened, yelled out soundless cries, and his eyes went white before the devil villain came running in, nailing him in the face, knocking him unconscious. Thanks for the help, kid, said the devil villain. No problem. Now, the payment, said the kid. Payment? Did you really think I'd do this for free? Asked the kid. I'll be taking about 5,000 yen for the assistance fee and an additional 1,000 for Before he could finish, the kid was grabbed by the neck and thrown against a wall. "You won't get shit from me," said the devil villain, pissed off. "Do you want to know what I did to the last person who forced a favor onto me?" Hey now, calm down. We can talk about this," the kid jittered out. "No need to get violent here," I said. The devil villain yelled out, winding up his fist. "Don't order me around." Suddenly, a cracking sound was heard as the devil villain dropped to the floor, unconscious, as someone stood behind him, holding a pipe smeared with fresh blood. As the kid got up, he came face to face with a familiar figure. "Sachi, Izuku, what the hell are you doing here? And what's with the getup?" asked Sachi. Suddenly, another hero came out, running towards them. "Hey, you two, stay where you are," yelled out the hero. "What the heroes?" Sachi exclaimed. "Let's run," Izuku yelled out as the two bolted from the scene. As the two heroes bent down, seeing the unconscious villain, they decided to call for backup to apprehend their initial target before chasing after their new suspects. However, before they could get their phones out, they heard footsteps coming from behind them. "His outfit was kinda cute," said a young girl's voice. "Reminds me of a bunny. I love bunnies." "Hey, who the hell are you? Identify your..." Before the hero could finish, he found himself with a knife in his stomach. As he fell back in shock, he got a closer look at the girl. "Wait, I recognize you. You're that serial killer," uttered out the hero, before his life was ended too. Meanwhile, nearly 2 miles away from where the initial villain attack took place, Izuku and Sachi found themselves lying down in the garbage dumps that was Dagaba Beach, covered in sweat from all the running. "Alright, kid, mind telling me what that was all about?" asked Sachi. "I was just helping someone who was treated unfairly. That's all, like how I saved you," Izuku uttered out. "And you thought he would just give you money for saving him?" asked Sachi. "This ain't Pokemon, dude. You can't just expect everyone to be nice to you. I needed to start up somehow," explained Izuku. "No place wants to hire me because I'm quirkless and I needed the money." "Money for what?" asked Sachi. "I thought you had it fine." "You don't get it, Sachi. I'm done trying to be a hero. This world's far too unfair for me to just sit down and do nothing. Something needs to be done to change the world for the better, and I can't do it with just allowance and crude gears," exclaimed Izuku. "Don't tell me you're serious, Izuku," Sachi exclaimed. "Do you know how dangerous being a villain is? This isn't your everyday profession. You can actually die. And I'd rather die fighting for what I want than to live an unfair life at the bottom of the social hierarchy," Izuku yelled back. Sachi clenched his fists in anger. "Do you know how ashamed I was when I realized my actions put your life in danger?" yelled Sachi. "I was just a thug. I bottom feeder caught in a net. You could have just walked away, but you chose to put your own life on the line. I wanted to make sure that wouldn't happen again by giving you hope and support. Now look at you, nearly dying again because of what I said. This isn't about you, Sachi. Becoming a villain is my choice. You said it, didn't you? That I was the master of my own destiny. Well, as the master, I command my destiny to become the villain that will make this world a better place, where the quirkless and quirked have an equal chance to become what they want to become." Izuku yelled back. "Stop acting so hasty. No one can just change the world overnight. And doing it in such a dishonest way will never work if you're gonna run face first into danger constantly." Sachi yelled back. "Can't you tell that I'm worried about your safety? Can't you tell that I'm trying to help you? It's like you said, don't let others tell you what you can't do, right, Sachi?" Izuku asked back. "So why are you going back on those words?" "I chose this. I'll try my best to carry this through, and what happens happens. End of story." Hearing this, Sachi turned around and stomped off. "Fine, go ahead and get yourself killed. See if I care," Sachi yelled out, walking off. As that happened, Izuku pulled up his hood again as he started to walk the other way. However, as that happened, Sachi turned around for a bit, looking back at Izuku. He saw him shaking as he tried to pull his hood down, as if he thinks no one could tell that he was crying that way. Feeling guilty, he turned around and walked towards the boy. "Hey, sorry if I was a little harsh," apologized Sachi. "It's just that I already have a sick brother I need to care for, and I didn't want to have another life I needed to protect. But I guess I was just being selfish. After all, you saved my life, so it's only fair that I repay the favor." Izuku turned around as he saw Sachi, reaching his hand out, patting him in the back. "So just tell me which villain you're gonna help next, partner. I'll be there to protect you," said Sachi with a smile. "Sachi," Izuku uttered out, before bursting into tears. "Geez, you can be such a crybaby, you know that," chuckled Sachi, hugging him tightly. A few hours later, the duo approached a seemingly abandoned warehouse. "Alright, Izuku, if you want to grow as a villain, you need to learn the basics of trading in the criminal underworld," said Sachi. "This warehouse is a hangout stop of a small-time gang of criminals I used to run errands for, so we might be able to get a bit of learning experience from them." "Alright, I'll see what I can do," Izuku replied, shaking nervously underneath his hoodie. Now, remember, it's a lot easier to trade with people you have connections with, so take this as the first tip," explained Sachi. Build connections. As they entered, he saw a group of around 12 people, some of which looked rather young. One was almost his age. Their leader was a man built like a bull, with the face of a bull-shaped belt buckle, and was named Bull Horns. Surely his quirk must be goat. "Hey, Bull Horns, buddy, long time no see. So, how's it been?" asked Sachi. Suddenly, the leader grabbed Sachi by his shirt's collar, picking him up with one hoof. "Sachi, I thought I told you that if we met again, I'd skewer you like the rat you are," the criminal leader yelled out. "Whoa there, I thought that bank robbery was behind us now," Sachi uttered out in fear. "Behind us? You're the one who sold us out and ran with the money. I got 2 of my best men sent behind bars and 1 killed because of you," yelled Bull Horns. "You're dead meat." Hearing this, Sachi turned around to Izuku, whom the gang didn't even bother noticing. "Now you see, Izuku, when you're in a situation like this, all you do is take your trusty finger gun, aim right at the dumb bull's eye," said Sachi casually, trying to hide his panic, "then shoot and run like hell." Suddenly, Sachi fired a bullet into the bull's eye as the crime boss dropped him while writhing in pain. As that happened, the two made a beeline out of the warehouse, being chased by the rest of the gang. After nearly half an hour of chasing, the two were able to lose the gang as they got themselves back on track. Tip number 2, pull a tough guy act, Sachi explained, as he and Izuku were on their way to meet another potential client. When you take the upper hand, your buyer will be too intimidated to oppose you or say no, making them easy money. As they walked up to their next client, a crook who's been trying to rob a comic store that scammed him with bootleg collector's item merchandise. As they came up to them, Izuku stomped in, trying his next to act intimidating. "Oi fuckface, heard you needed help busting into this store," said Izuku, stiffening his face to the point where it almost looked like All Might while trying to do his next Katsuki impression, but failing miserably at both. "What did you say about my face?" the crook replied, revealing a scaly lizard face with long, pinkish hair. No. Act tough but don't offend them," Sachi whispered out, hiding behind a trash can. "I'll have you know that I take pride in being a lizard." The crook kept on yelling, "My dad was a salamander. My mom was a bearded dragon. And I will not tolerate anyone who dares to diss me." As Izuku was backing up, he turned his head to look at Sachi, sending him help me signals. "Don't drop the act," he whispered. "Apologize, but don't act like you were intimidated." "Sorry about that," Izuku replied, now sounding like All Might. "Anyways, you needed help breaking into that comic store." "Yeah, they've been scamming people with their limited edition golden fries off figurine. A Frieza figurine whose face is a pack of fries, which is worth over 60 yen. But when I bought it, it was just a cheaply spray-painted 1,000 yen common Frieza figurine with the head removed and replaced with a French fry keychain. Their entire store is producing bootlegs and scamming collectors such as myself, and I will prove it," explained the crook. "Here," Izuku said bluntly, pulling out a map. "These are the schematics of the building, along with every exit, where the wires for the alarms are located in every room. Now we're talking." "Gimme," said the crook. Tusk. "Wait a minute. You gotta for it first," said Izuku. 30 yen. "Excuse me?" asked the crook. "Did I stutter?" asked Izuku, flashing a menacing glare. Suddenly, the crook pulled out a giant sword made up of a bunch of strapped-together knives. "Did you?" he yelled out. "Pull out. Pull out," Sachi yelled from behind the trash can. "Get the hell out of there." And once again, the duo ran off with no progress made. Later still, they tried once again. "I have a collection of glass eyes I could offer," Izuku said, trying out Sachi's third tactic. Act sympathetic towards the clients to get on their good side. That tip went well. For the first 3 minutes that was. "Run away," Sachi yelled out, as he and Izuku dashed away as their client's muscle tissues expanded, as he tried to chase them down and mush them to paste. On their 4th attempt, they tried to meet someone who seemed more docile. "Stain, I presume. I heard you like to get informed before facing off against heroes. Well, I have the information of several heroes that..." "Fuck off." "Understood." That attempt was short-lived. Still, they tried again. "Hi there, buddy. I heard you were down on luck. Trouble with heroes. I can leak their personal info online for you for a small payment. I got samples right here." And again, "Not interested." "Oi, that son of a bitch behind you scammed 100 yen off me. What did you say about my hair?" And again, "Run, Izuku. They're onto us. Run, Nidrandeo." Izuku. And again. After a while, the sun was starting to set, as it was already the afternoon. Even Inko called, asking where he was, as he lied to her, telling her he was just going out for a run. "Alright, so maybe Outlast 7 runs didn't go according to plan, but I am certain that our next client will be happy to do business with you," said Sachi. "You said the exact same thing the last 6 times. Izuku muttered, exhausted as well. "Well, you know what they say, 7 times a charm, but 8 could do no harm," Sachi replied. Literally no one says that, Izuku added. As they were reaching their destination, let's just get this over with. However, just then, Sachi stopped and gestured Izuku to do the same. Wait, did you hear that? Asked Sachi. Hear what? Asked Izuku. Sachi formed a gun with his hand, like a pistol. Izuku, stay here, he ordered as he peeked into the corner of the alley. While he wasn't sure what it was, if it was anything and not just the adrenaline from running the entire day putting him on edge, but he was sure that they were being followed. Peeking into the corner, he jumped out, pointing his finger at the first thing he saw, a raccoon. Damn, worried over nothing, said Sachi. Never mind, Izuku, it was just a raccoon. No response. Izuku, he was missing. Oh shit. Izuku woke up in a dark room of what seemed to be an abandoned apartment. He tried to move, but realized he was tied down to a chair. Attempting to call for help, the dryness of his throat only allowed him to let out a pathetic yelp. Oh, he woke up, Izuku said, a voice. From the side of the room, a girl around his age emerged from the shadows. She had blonde, silky hair that were tied in 2 buns and was wearing a high school sailor uniform. Her eyes were baggy, contrasting her energetic behaviors. I've been watching you for so long, Izuku-kun, she said lustfully. Ever since I saw you that day, beaten up by those crude men and covered in blood, I was obsessed. I want to re-experience that so badly. She pulled out a knife, waving it in front of Izuku, who was practically pissing himself in fear. You came so close from getting beat up and covered in wounds when trying to sell your stuff. Yet you never did, you tease. She continued, and with your big brother watching you like a hawk, I couldn't even get close to you. He's not my guy, Izuku uttered out, before getting a shallow cut in the leg. Oh yes, the girl exclaimed, the redness, the thickness, so beautiful. Bending down, she started to lick the blood from the wound, freaking Izuku out. While trying to get himself untied, however, he noticed just how banged up her place looked. It looked like no one's been living here for years. All of a sudden, he remembered the advice that Sachi gave him. Tip number 1, connect with your clients. Do you live here? Asked Izuku. Suddenly, the girl stopped licking as she got up to look him in the eyes. Why do you want to know that? Asked the girl. I was just wondering, said Izuku, trying to keep his composure. I mean, I've seen animes where spoiled rich girls would try to kidnap or outright buy the boys they have a crush on, but you don't seem spoiled nor rich. I don't understand what you're trying to get at here, Izuku. The girl answered. Fine, if that question is too avant-garde, how about your name? Asked Izuku. My name? Yeah, I mean, it's just a name. What's so hard about telling me your name? The girl hesitated for a second. Toga. Himiko Toga. SC. Now we're getting somewhere. Yeah. The girl paused for a brief moment before she looking at Izuku's wound. A brief moment of silence followed. You're not gonna continue? Asked Izuku. Well, it'll be awkward, wouldn't it? Asked Toga. To introduce yourself then resuming to suck blood. It doesn't feel right. Well, sucking out someone's blood isn't right to begin with, you know. Asked Izuku. However, saying this caused Toga to stiffen up before pushing him over. I know, she yelled, losing composure for a bit. In doing so, the ropes that tied Izuku down came loose as he was able to break free. Seeing this, Toga ran in, trying to once again subdue him. But Izuku wasn't gonna go down easy, as kicked Toga in the stomach as soon as she ran in, knocking her over. Seeing how she lost composure, Izuku knew it was now or never to apply Sachi's next tip. Tip number 2, act tough. Then why do you do it if you know it's clearly not right? Izuku continued to ask, walking up to her. Shut up. You know nothing about me. So do me a favor and stay down, you blood bag. Toga yelled out, grabbing her knife, lunging at him once again. Seeing this, Izuku needed to defend himself with something. Luckily, his hand found his way to a nearby broom, which he used to block her blow before pushing her against the wall. Then tell me more about you so that I can know you better. Izuku yelled back. No, you're just gonna turn your back on me like everyone else did. Toga yelled back, overpowering him and pushing him into an empty shelf, knocking the whole thing over. Well, from the looks of it, I can see why. Getting turned on by people's blood is enough to creep anyone out. Izuku yelled back, tackling her and pinning her to the floor, but only those who know you thoroughly can truly understand why. No, you will never understand me. Toga yelled out, punching him in the sides before flipping him through the front door, breaking it, and I don't need your understanding. Your blood works just fine. As Izuku tried to get up, however, Toga came running in, kicking him in the stomach, making him cough out blood. Seeing this was a huge turn-on for Toga, as she blushed madly at the sight of Izuku being injured. That same smile again. Izuku uttered out, doesn't your face hurt from smiling so much? Toga grabbed Izuku by the hair, pulling him up. You gave me quite a workout there, Izuku said Toga in her usual tone, as if the mere sight of blood allowed her to regain composure. Looks like I'll have to teach you to behave. Putting her knife to his neck, she sunk the blade, digging it into his skin. Is this normal to you? Izuku uttered out. Toga stopped for a moment. Looks like I guessed right, he uttered out. Toga's hands shook for a moment. Fine, You got me. I think it's normal. I perceive drinking the blood of those I love the same as kissing those I love. This is how I think. This is me. You got a problem with that? No, Izuku uttered out. In fact, I find it kinda cute. Toga dropped her knife upon hearing that. Huh, it's like your own thing. What separates you from the crowd? I bet your quirk has something to do with blood, correct? Asked Izuku. Why yeah, Toga replied. I turn into anyone whose blood I drink. That sounds like such a cool quirk, said Izuku. I mean, I could write a whole book's worth of uses your quirk can apply to the world. Well, the world sure didn't see it that way, said Toga. Quirk counseling, right? Asked Izuku. A correctional program that's meant to readjust one's behavior so that they could suit today's society. From what I heard, they belittle quirk users, try to convince them that their quirks are evil and that they were better off quirkless. In fact, one of the many ways they correct their patients is by labeling them as quirkless. They did far worse to me. When they labeled me as quirkless, it was as if a mask was put on me. My friends, my parents, they only wanted to see me with a mask, because the real me was unfit for society, right? Asked Izuku. Yeah, how did you know? Because I know that feeling of not belonging. I know it all too well, replied Izuku. To be compared to everyone else, persecuted if you differ too much, and to be forced to be someone you're not. Not for the sake of bettering yourself, but to fulfill the expectation of someone who won't even give a crap once those expectations are fulfilled. Looking at Toga, he could see her, fully invested in what he was saying. You're a lucky girl, Toga, because at least you have the ability to create the illusion of being loved. Izuku continued. Rarely anyone I know likes quirkless people or geeks, and I am both. I can fake not being a geek, but I can't fake having a quirk. Thus, I fear becoming someone I hate for the sake of being loved, only to never receive that love. Turning to her, he noticed that tears were forming at the corner of her eyes. It wasn't worth it, was it? To fake your interests, to create a mask just so others would like you. Somewhere, down beneath this persona you put up must have been a thought repeating no one loves the real you, forcing you to keep that mask glued onto your face forever. Izuku continued. So, how was it when you finally took it off? How did it feel to let your real colors shine? Toga lunged in, only this time, it wasn't to attack him. He felt his left shoulder getting wetter. Toga was crying into it. It was horrible. Everyone called me a monster. I had to run away from home. I haven't slept in a warm bed for nearly 5 years. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. She cried. And yet, I'll do anything but put on that damn fake smile again. I just want to be me. I just want to have someone love the real me. Izuku hugged her tightly, similar to how Sachi hugged him, and all he did afterwards was thank the man in spirit. Tip number 3, sympathize with the client. Suddenly, a loud banging was heard from the door. Clear. Suddenly, the door was broken down. They found me. How? Toga exclaimed as they heard rapid footsteps. Suddenly, a police officer came up the stairs of the broken-down apartment. Freeze. Don't move, yelled the officer, and let your hostage go. Suddenly, Izuku took a piece of wood nearby, throwing it into the cop's eye as the man crashed down the stairs. Toga, let's move, Izuku exclaimed. Wait, you're helping me? Asked Toga. Of course, said Izuku, without a single hint of lies drawn on his face. I wouldn't I? For once in her life, Toga felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Deep down, her instincts, thoughts, and subconscious all came to agreement, telling her at the same time, this boy's trying to help you, trust him. Getting up, she ran under the bed, pulling Izuku's backpack from under there. You stored some crazy shit in here, Izuku, said Toga. Well, now it's time to put some of this crazy shit to use. Suddenly, another batch of cops came out the stairs, aiming their guns at Toga. Freeze. Don't ga. My eyes. As soon as those cops came, Izuku pulled a high-powered flashlight from his backpack, shining it in the face of the cops. This moment of vulnerability allowed Toga to close in and secure the kill. They will just keep coming. We have to make our way up to the roof, said Izuku. Right, then let's go, exclaimed Toga. As the two ran up the stairs, the cops followed closely behind. One of them pulled out his handgun, aiming at the two. However, Izuku shone his flashlight behind him, throwing off his aim as the bullets missed them by a hair. Reaching the roof, however, a police chopper stood waiting for them. Shit, all this for one girl. What's with the priorities of the authorities these days? Asked Toga as Izuku frantically turned around to lock the door behind them. A dozen men dropped from the chopper. Stay close, Izuku. Looks like we're fighting after all, said Toga. As the police went to subdue the two, Izuku and Toga ran around him, one to the right, the other to the left. Luckily, Izuku still had his hoodie and face mask on, so none of the cops could tell who he was. Instead, they prioritized Toga. After the girl, the cops yelled, running after her. However, one of the cops ended up getting knocked out by Izuku, taking advantage of the distraction to pull out a can of spray paint and a lighter. As one of the cops approached him, he retaliated by lighting him up on fire, forcing him to tuck and roll around in pain. Meanwhile, two of the cops rushed at Toga, swinging at her with batons. However, they both missed, as Toga strafed past both of them, slitting their necks. However, a third one came after her with a taser, lunging at her. However, before making the full lunge, he was taken out from behind by Izuku, who took the taser from one of the fallen cops to knock him out. "Thanks for the assist," said Toga. "No problem," replied Izuku. As the two looked onward at the remaining cops, damn, there's still so many. Suddenly, what sounded like gunshots were heard, as one by one, the cops were shot down. The two looked around, trying to identify the new threat. Just then, Izuku heard a voice. "Hey, I see you, bro. Over here." Looking behind them, they saw Sachi, standing on the roof on the building across from them. "Sachi, is that you?" asked Izuku. "Darn straight. I came to save you. Boo, what, I got the wrong building," said Sachi. "Hey, wait, what's that girl doing there? Don't tell me you scored when I wasn't looking. I'll give you the details later. Now, we have to get the hell away from this place," replied Izuku, running towards him. However, once they reached the edge of the building, Izuku's legs turned to jelly. "What's wrong, Izuku? Just get over here," said Sachi. "Easier said than done, Sachi," Izuku uttered in fear. "Well, you better hurry. The cops are breaking through the roof door," said Sachi, pointing to the door as it was being bashed down. Toga, do you know any other exit in this build?" Before Izuku could finish, Toga jumped to the other side with ease. Looking at her in a flabbergasted way, Izuku dropped to his knees. "Come on, Izuku. If I can do it, so can you," exclaimed Toga. "We believe in you, Izuku," Sachi yelled out. Looking back, the cops have broken through. Just then, Izuku's mind raced at 100 miles per hour. What could he do? Maybe he could just turn himself in and feign innocence, or perhaps he could play dead. No, there were no other options. It was either get caught by the cops or a leap of faith. Then he remembered everything that led up to this moment. What Sachi said. You might die if you go down the villain path. He finally understood why Sachi was so worried about him. It was kinda obvious, but he let his own hubris get the better of him. Now, he finally realized how terrifying death was. Terrifying. Since when was death terrifying to him? Certainly not when Katsuki threw him out the window. Heck, he nearly did swan dive off a building when All Might turned him down. So why was death terrifying again? Izuku, Toga, and Sachi cheered at once. Suddenly, it made sense. Death is only as scary as one would value his life. Before, no one but his mother even bothered if he breathed or not. But now, there are others who care for him now. Why did he become a villain? Because that is where he regained his will to live. And he wasn't gonna let a mere 7-meter gap stop him. So, he took 2 steps back, and then took a leap of faith. Time felt so much slower in the air. For a brief moment, he felt like he could fly. And just like that, reality came crashing down as he was off by half a meter as he fell off the building. Or so he thought. Looking back up, he saw both Sachi and Toga, grabbing him by both of his wrists before pulling him back up. Thank guys. Izuku thanked the two, shooken, I thought I was gonna die. Suddenly, the two hugged him tightly. Thank God you're safe, said Sachi. Don't ever scare me like that again, okay, said Toga. Okay, thanks guys, said Izuku. Hey, we're not out of the frying pan just yet, said Toga, pointing at the cops, who were still after them. Seeing this, the three ran off, as Sachi pointed them to the ladder he took to get to the roof. Using this, they reached ground floor in no time, finding themselves in an alleyway. The train station is just a couple minutes away. If we make it on the train, we can lose the cops, said Sachi. Alright, then let's go, exclaimed Toga. Not so fast. As the three turned around, they found themselves surrounded by a bunch of cops. This is the end of the road, villains, said one of the cops. We've called the pro-hero agencies. Once they arrive, there will be nowhere to run. Crap, we're surrounded, said Izuku. Anyone got any ideas? Well, said Sachi, there is still one way. Really? The two others said in unison. Allow me to explain. My quirk allows me to fire compressed kinetic energy from the tip of my fingers, but there's a limit to the amount of power each one of my fingers can output, explained Sachi. I usually shoot with one finger, but if I fired 2 at once, my power output doubles, and if I use 3, it triples. Fire all 5 of my fingers at once, and I can create a blast strong enough to propel all 3 of us several dozens of meters in seconds. Really? Then do it, said Toga. Here's the catch. My hands aren't built to handle this much power. So firing all 5 fingers at once will break my hand in doing so, explained Sachi. Thus, we only have 2 shots before I become completely useless. So what are you saying? Asked Izuku. Suddenly, Sachi grabbed both him and Toga, pulling them extremely close to him. So I'm telling you to hold on tight, yelled Sachi as he fired a massive blast out of his hand, creating an explosion that propelled them halfway across the street. Hell yeah, we lost them, said Toga. Why yeah. Sachi winced in pain, as his hand was now in 7 different shades of purple. Now let's run before the cops catch up. yelled Izuku, as the three got the hell out of Dodge before more cops could show up. After all of that mess, the three finally made it onto the train, heading back to Yokohama. Luckily, it was a Saturday, so the train cart they were in was empty, as Sachi was using the first aid kit from Izuku's backpack to fix his broken hand. He accessed the situation. Well, we nearly died 8 times today, sold nothing, nearly got caught by the cops, and my hand looks like it's made of grape jelly, thought Sachi, and yet, despite all of this, looking in front of him, he saw Toga and Izuku, both asleep, one leaning on the other. I think this day was a major success. 4 days have passed since Izuku started to get into the info broker business. Luckily, they had a month's worth of time with spring break around the corner. However, even with hyper hard to find leaked information, there were not many buyers. While Izuku did obtain a new party member, the crazed Yander Toga, their daily haul came barely at 5,000 yen. Another dead-end weekend. Izuku was so exhausted that he just wanted to flop into bed, until the ringing of his doorbell caught his attention. Who could it be at this time? Asked Izuku to himself. His mom just left doing groceries, meaning it couldn't have been her. Seeing no other possibilities, Izuku became wary that maybe the police have traced him down. Picking up a rolling pin from the kitchen, he cautiously approached the door. Looking at the peephole, he saw a very blurry outside. Curse you, FedEx, Izuku muttered, reminiscing back to a few months ago when their delivery guy slipped, his package scrapping against the door and ruining the peephole. Not wanting to take any chances, he opened the door slowly, his hand shaking as he was about to raise the rolling pin and attack the first person that came into view. However, that person lunged at him instead. Izuku, a voice yelled out. Gah, no, I didn't do it. I swear. Izuku cried out like a sissy. Do what, silly? Pirating animes online? Asked a mocking voice at the doorstep. Sachi, Izuku asked, seeing him standing by the door. Then you must be. Looking down, he saw Toga hugging his chest. His brain shut off for a sec, as it took him 5 whole seconds to realize he wasn't properly dressed and didn't even have his pants on. Nice underwear undies, by the way, joked Sachi, staring at his underwear, which have the Japanese kanji for underwear written all over them. They go great with your t-shirt shirt. They're the only ones I had left after I threw out my All Might undies, Izuku retorted with an embarrassed face. All Might undies, laughed Sachi. What are you for? I think he'd look cute in them, muttered Toga, taking her time to gawk at Izuku in a loose shirt, something she always imagined in her sleep. So cute, you. So anyways, why are you two here? Asked Izuku. Listen, while you spent your mornings at school, we found a client that seems to be interested in you and what you do, said Sachi. Really? Asked Izuku. Yeah, he was really enthusiastic when I told him that you held tabs on the private info several different heroes. In fact, I was able to score you a meeting with him, said Sachi. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's get to it, said Izuku. Well, get dressed first, geez, said Sachi. Right, get dressed, Izuku exclaimed, realizing that he still didn't have pants on, and that Toga was staring at him like a kid in a petting zoo. No, stay like this a little longer, Toga said as she pinched his cheeks. Her face tomato red, so soft. Izuku let out a sigh as he got up and walked towards his room. Give me a bit. My outfits just came out of the laundry, so it might take a while, but make yourselves at home in the meantime, said Izuku. Alright, give us a heads up when you finish putting on your pants and your coat, joked Sachi, picking up his sneakers, and don't forget your shoes. He isn't letting that go, is he? Thought Izuku as he started to get changed. As the two others waited, Toga flopped onto the living room couch. So soft. Izuku really has it made, doesn't he? Asked Toga. You said it, Toga sis. A nice warm home, regular heating, said Sachi, drinking a can of beer he took from the fridge as he looked at a family photo framed near the sink. And loving. Sachi's voice cut off as he saw the woman holding Izuku in the picture. Damn, is that his mom? Said Sachi, leaning in at the picture. I envy whoever knocked her up cause she's SSSS smockin', he said, pulling a very poor Jim Carrey impression. Gross, muttered Toga, lying upside down on the couch while looking at him. Looking closer at the picture, however, he noticed that the supposed husband in the picture had his face cropped out. Whoever took this picture should be fired as a photographer, said Sachi out loud. Still, something about Inko just seemed so familiar with him, like he's seen her somewhere before. However, before he could think up of what, Izuku came out, fully dressed in his villain outfit. We're going, said Izuku, in annoyed manner. Izu bro, asked Sachi. I was kidding when I said wear your coat, Looking at Izuku, he was wearing a gray and bland-looking hoodie with hoodie written on it. Izuku, what happened to the rabbit one? Asked Toga, not realizing that Izuku's original costume was supposed to be a palette-swapped All Might hoodie. Apparently, cheap spray paint can't stand multiple washes. Now the hoodie's just a faintly blue and red mess, said Izuku, embarrassed. Let's just go. As the two got up from where they were, Sachi took one look back at the picture. Something about it just didn't sit right with him. The building that Sachi indicated seemed to be a crowded office building of sorts. Seeing this, Izuku became skeptical. After all, they were villains, so there was no way that people like them can just operate broad daylight. And was the man they were gonna meet really someone they could trust? I'm not really sure about this, Sachi, said Izuku, as they entered the building. Don't worry about it. I'm certain that there is a perfectly logical explanation to all this, replied Sachi with confidence. Walking up to the receptionist, excuse me ma'am, we have an appointment at room C205. The receptionist gave him an annoyed stare. It's for Mr. Joe Mother. Sachi continued. Nothing, just dead silence. Can you just point us to his office? He kept asking. Sir, C205 is our supply closet. Now please leave before I call security, said the receptionist in a monotone yet stern way. As the three exited the building, Sachi with a confused stare followed by Izuku and Toga giving him a mean look. Care to explain? Asked Toga. That patchwork bastard lied to me, exclaimed Sachi. However, upon yelling that out loud, laughter can be heard from the alley in between two buildings across the street. As the three approached to get a better view, they ran face first into a tall, lanky man in a black coat, wearing a plain white shirt underwear. But what was striking about him was the multitude of what looked like burn scars on his body, which made him look like a Frankenstein's monster-esque creature. I can't believe you actually fell for that. Man, that was golden. The man continued laughing. All right, Dabi, explain yourself. I thought we were gonna meet somewhere discreet, exclaimed Sachi. Well, is this place not discreet enough? Asked Dabi. Why the office then? Sachi yelled back. I dunno, just wanted to screw with you I guess, joked Dabi. Anyways, that kid's your info broker, right? Why yeah, name's Mightless, by the way, said Izuku, extending his hand for a handshake. Oh, an alias but no masks. That's ballsy, replied Dabi. No ma oh shit, thought Izuku, realizing that he forgot to wear his face mask. Yeah, let's just say I'm not afraid to show my face, Izuku improvised. Now, you said you wanted to meet me. Indeed, replied Dabi. I need some private information concerning the pro-hero Endeavor. The three stiffened upon hearing its name. Was this guy serious? Endeavor, the number 2 hero that has arrested more criminals annually than All Might, and this guy who looks like he can't even lift 25 seconds without his arms snapping like twigs was after him. Why, you can't be serious, exclaimed Izuku. Do you have his info or not? Asked Dabi, more aggressively. Well, of course, hold on. Let me just see here, muttered Izuku, digging through his bag. While Izuku was searching, Toga approached the man, examining him from head to toe like a curious child. So, what's the deal with you and Flamebeard? Asked Toga. It's none of your business, Blondie. I came for information about the hero, that's all you need to know, said Dabi. You know he's like super duper strong, right? He used to be rivals with All Might back in his high school years, added Toga. If I were you, I'd want to stay as far away as possible from someone like him. I appreciate your concern, which I personally find weird you're even concerned about someone like me, but it's really not what you think. My connections with Endeavor runs much deeper than your average grudge-driven criminal, said Dabi. Much deeper, Toga muttered, before blushing. A secret lover. You have a real vivid imagination, Toga sis, said Sachi, deducing what Toga was thinking. Here you go, said Izuku, handing Dabi a yellow file. Everything you need to know about Endeavor is here, including his address, schedules, close relatives and their whereabouts, potential weaknesses I mapped out, and recommended support gears to buy. Thanks kid, just what I needed, said Dabi, taking the file and walking off, before getting blocked by Sachi and Toga. Hey, what's the big deal? You're supposed to pay for that, Dabi, said Sachi. This kind of info doesn't come free, you know. This is a top hero who chooses to keep most of his info private, so such information will cost you quite a fortune. We recommend you pay up, buddy, added Toga, pulling out her knife. 4,000 to 0 yen, cash only. However, Dabi smirked in response to their threats. I figured as much, said Dabi, pointing his hand at them. Suddenly, Toga's naturally honed instincts sensed the feeling of imminent death, as she quickly grabbed and pulled Sachi down. Look out, she yelled as the two narrowly dodged a cloud of blue flames flying right at them. Having dodged the flames, Sachi tackled Dabi, knocking further back into the alley. Looks like we got ourselves a tough customer, Izu bro, said Sachi. What should we do with him? Asked Toga, looking at Izuku, still bewildered at the size of the fire. Subdue him, and squeeze the money out of him or destroy the info I gave him, ordered Izuku, having a little more experience in the fields after 4 days. Dabi chuckled at their comment, however, extending both of him hands at the three of them. I'd love to see you try and dodge this in such a narrow alleyway, said Dabi, releasing another massive blast of flame. Get cremated. Seeing the massive cloud of flame, the three quickly scrambled, hiding behind a nearby dumpster to avoid the flames. Hod, exclaimed Sachi, as he barely dodged the flame blast, which set his butt on fire as he dipped it in a dirty water puddle. Gross, gross, gross. Damn, he's tough. We have to think of something to make sure he doesn't get away. Any ideas, Toga? Asked Izuku, only to realize Toga wasn't with them. Toga. Suddenly, 10 feet above the cloud of blasted flames, Toga descended, dropkicking Dabi and making him do a full backflip before tumbling over, falling flat on his stomach. Pinning him down, she pulled out a knife, ready to stab him. I wonder what your blood's gonna taste like, she said, flashing her signature smile. However, Dabi's palms directed themselves at her, firing out a blast of flames which caught her off guard, setting her cardigan on fire. However, without dropping composure, she stripped herself from her flaming cardigan, leaving only her bra to cover up her top, as she tossed the flaming piece of cloth back at Dabi, hoping to set him on fire, only for the man to burn it to ashes as the fire then continued its journey towards her. Luckily, Izuku came lunging out of hiding, tackling her out of the way of the flames. Are you okay to GAH? Izuku asked, before realizing where he had groped Toga. Looking down at his hands on her slightly plump chest, Toga's face turned red for a bit before she grabbed him by the neck. Let go, she said sternly as Izuku quickly got off her, only to narrowly dodge another blast of flames coming their way. Just then, Sachi popped out of cover, using 2 fingers instead of 1 to fire a powerful charged shot at Dabi. However, the target simply waved his hand, creating a wall of flame, incinerating the energy bullet before it could touch him. These guys, muttered Dabi, they're not half bad. Izuku, you have a plan? Asked Toga, getting up. Turning to Sachi, the man immediately got the message. Look, that was a one-time thing. Do you have any idea how long it took for me to recover last time I did it? Sachi immediately replied. The two didn't drop the stare, as Sachi cracked pretty much immediately from peer pressure. You owe me a bubble tea, said Sachi, as Dabi fired his strongest flame blast yet. Facing the fire blast, Sachi extended his left hand, as the tip of his 5 fingers started to emanate a red glow. Suddenly, a huge blast of energy came from all 5 fingers at once again breaking Sachi's entire hand as the attack punched a hole through Dabi's flames, even knocking him off balance in the process. My attack was overpowered, Dabi exclaimed. No matter, I'll just... Suddenly, 2 knives came flying through the flames before Dabi could fire again, stabbing into his hands, making him wince in pain. Just then, Izuku came charging through the hole Sachi made, pushing him down and pinning him to the ground. Just then, Sachi came in, pointing his right index finger at Dabi while Toga pulled out her knives lodged in Dabi's hands. It's over, now pay up, exclaimed Izuku, as Toga went to check on Sachi's broken hand. That looks painful, she said nonchalantly. Actually, it feels great. You should try it sometimes, replied Sachi sarcastically. Dabi let out a small chuckle as his one free arm reached into his pocket. Sorry, I never had any to begin with, replied Dabi, revealing his pocket was empty. In awe, Izuku turned to Toga. Take my files back. We got another wise guy who thought he could get away with stealing from us, replied Izuku. However, as Toga grabbed the file, a piece of paper fell out. Picking it up, she read it out of curiosity. Tauya Todoroki, missing since age 12, the eldest son of the Todoroki family. However, reading it out loud seemed to give Dabi a sudden boost in power, as he easily overpowered Izuku, before running to grab the files. The files? Give them to me, Dabi exclaimed, firing a flame blast out of desperation. However, due to the stab wound in his hand, the aim of his flames were off, as it barely grazed Toga and burned the files instead. Seeing this, Dabi's face shifted into despair. "No, he cried, as he tried to grasp onto the burning pages, as they slowly turned to ash. Despaired and broken, the man collapsed, as tears gushed out of his eyes, as he desperately scooped up the ashes of the former files together, trying to somehow assemble the ashes back into its original form, but in vain. Seeing this, Izuku and Toga decided it was best to just leave the man be, as whatever it was that he wanted to know from those files have long been lost to his own flames. However, as the two were about to leave, Sachi stepped up to him, as he helped the man pick up whatever scraps of paper that were sparred from the initial fire blast. Sachi, what are you doing? Let's go, said Toga. Toga, wait, look at what's doing, said Izuku, interested in what was happening. So, how's your mom been? Tauya asked Sachi. Suddenly, everyone else's eyes widened in shock at Sachi's comment. How did you know it was me? Asked Dabi. I had a hunch, replied Sachi. Remember when we initially met? Flashback. It was at a night bar near the lesser populated parts of Yokohama. During the day, the place is a popular ramen shop that's often at max capacity. At night, the bars were often populated by escaped convicts or villains who were yet to be caught. Sachi came in, like any other day, as he was a regular at the bar. 2 cans of Corona beer and some of your house's famous room raisin cake. ordered Sachi. "Coming right up, buddy," said the bartender, a broad, well-built, strong-looking fellow with a thick brown beard which reinforces his intimidating appearance and covered in scars. "Cake's on the house." "Thanks, Tom," replied Sachi, downing his beer. "I heard your little bro's going through another surgery," said Tom. "Are you sure you can afford the bills this time around?" "Maybe if you gave me the beers for free," joked Sachi. "I gonna make a living somehow, my friend," replied Tom, laughing. "You're not the only one that needs money," says the man with a bank vault door as a wall ornament. Sachi retorted. "My days of robbing banks and contract killing are far behind me, Sachi," replied the bar owner. "You must know, illegal money won't last you your entire life. Eventually, even the greatest villain have to have a retirement plan. But once you reach that point, no hero will be coming after you, so that's at least a plus. I'm not gonna do this forever, Tom. Once my brother's finally fully recovered, we'll escape this country to prevent facing trial and maybe get a job outside of Japan," replied Sachi. However, as he said that, a man, aged in his early 20s, with scars which could make Tom's look cute, came sitting next to him, overhearing their conversation. "Having a brother sure is rough, isn't it?" he asked. "Huh?" asked Sachi. "I mean, you have to look after him. He hogs up your parents' attention to the point where it's like you don't exist anymore, and there's always this sense of obligation that forces you to take care of them," added the man. "Well, I can see where you're coming from, but in the end of the day, no matter how annoying they might get, no matter how much attention they sponge up or how tiring they are to look after, you love them all the same, isn't that so?" finished the man. Sachi froze for a minute, before taking another gulp of his beer. "Yeah, you're right," replied Sachi. "And when they're no longer with you, despite everything they did to annoy, piss off, or tire you, you feel an indescribable emptiness when they're gone." The man chuckled at his comment. "My little brother's gonna start high school next year," said the man. "I heard he was going to UA, a super prestigious hero school." "What? No way. That's awesome. I'll drink to that," Sachi exclaimed, finishing what was left of his first can. "You must be filled to the brim with pride." "Yeah, I just wish I could be there to cheer him on," replied the man. "Family issues?" asked Sachi. "Oh, you have no idea," replied Dabi. "So, what's your little brother like?" Suddenly, Sachi pulled out a massive photo album, as his eyes shone brightly like the sun. "So, first, here we see him on his first day at elementary. Look at him. Isn't he just so precious?" Sachi quickly started to describe. "Dear God, he has a brother complex," thought Dabi, as a massive drop of sweat ran down his face. "And here he is at the piano recital. He won second place. Second, among a crowd of 150 students, and he won second. I still can't forget his face full of pride and happiness. I tell you, he used to smile so much before that." Suddenly, Sachi stopped. "Well, it's kinda hard to explain. You see, my mom and dad's quirk were so different that it affected their genetics to the point where they developed selective fertility, a disease which makes people unable to give birth to healthy offspring unless they have compatible quirks. As a result, my little brother was born with a tumor that was initially unnoticeable. However, that tumor just kept growing and growing, and his story was, however, cut short by the sound of snoring, as it was revealed that Dabi fell asleep halfway through his presentation of his brother. Tom, on the other hand, was on his last box of tissue paper. "Wake up," Sachi yelled, pissed off. "Huh? Wah? Geez, what year is it?" asked Dabi. "Oh right, you were talking about your brother." "Forget it," said Sachi. "All you need to know is that I need money for my brother's surgery, that's all." "And how do you plan on getting that money?" asked Dabi. "Oh, I'm glad you asked. Believe it or not, I'm actually working with an info broker," said Sachi. "Info broker?" asked Dabi. "As in those guys who sells private information about company secrets to other companies for profit. I thought Jern monopolized that business years ago." "Well, this kid sell private information about heroes," replied Sachi, "so there's that." "Wait, heroes?" asked Dabi. "Yeah, why?" asked Sachi. "Does he have any info about Endeavor?" asked Dabi. "Well, I think so," replied Sachi. Dabi took out a random card and wrote an address on it. "Meet me tomorrow at 1 in this area," said Dabi. "The name's Dabi, by the way." End of flashback. The missing brother, the younger one heading to UA, family issues, the clues add up, explained Sachi. "Now tell me, am I correct?" Dabi nodded sadly. "I see. So I assume you just wanted revenge of your pops?" asked Sachi. "No, what I want has nothing to do with him," said Dabi. "Then tell me what you came to us for," said Dabi. "We'll help, for free." The Yokohama psychiatric ward received quite a curious visitor today. A man covered in scars. Despite his appearance, however, the man seemed quite tame, as he asked the receptionist about a certain patient. "Rei Todoroki. She's in room D225. Are you perhaps a relative?" asked the receptionist. "Yeah, you could say," replied Dabi. "Name?" asked the receptionist. Tauya Todoroki," replied the man. However, as the receptionist typed the name in, her face furrowed. "There's no one registered under that name." Are you sure you didn't mispronounce, sir? Asked the receptionist. However, upon looking up, the man was gone. Worried, the woman pulled out her phone. Security? As Dabi walked down the halls, he came to the door of his mom's room. There she was, staring blankly out the window, her tray of food still on her bed, untouched. Nervous feeling bubbled up as he wanted to leap at her, arms out, and hug her with all of his love, but as she turned around, all that came out of her mouth was, "Who?" A sense of dread washed over the man. As security made its way onto the floor, he was unable to hold back his tears. Dabi ran, leaving a wet trail of droplets behind him. One of the security officers turned to Rei. "Are you all right, Miss Todoroki?" asked the officer. The women stood silently until, for a brief moment, her eyes flashed with life. So this entire time, Dabi just wanted to know where Endeavor hid his mother. Asked Toga. He never made the hospitalization of his wife public. With how many hospitals there were in Yokohama alone, and with how often the Todoroki family tends to move, finding her would be like looking for a needle in a haystack, replied Sachi. "This is wrong," said Izuku, saddened by what he heard. No one should ever have hid their own mother from their child. "I actually feel really horrible for him now. If only there was some way I could apologize to him." "Apology accepted," replied a fourth voice. "Dabi," asked Sachi. "I got what I came for. I can now visit my mom whenever I want now," replied Dabi, walking up to Izuku. "Kid, you helped me find my mother and allowed me to know that she was in somewhere safe, away from my terrible dad, and to visit her whenever I want. I cannot thank you enough." "Well, all in a day's work, I guess," replied Izuku, flattered. "So, what's gonna happen to you now?" asked Toga. "Now that you got what you wanted." "I want to free my little brother," replied Dabi. "Endeavor has been abusing him since childhood. I tried to save him once, and got myself killed for that, but now I have you guys." "What are you suggesting here?" asked Sachi. "That whatever you guys are doing, I'm in," replied Dabi. "Yippee, our party grows bigger," replied Toga. "Wait, you're serious?" asked Izuku. "Why, are you turning me down?" asked Dabi. "No, of course not. Welcome aboard, Dabi," said Izuku. And with that, Dabi joined the party. "I think this calls for a celebration," replied Sachi. "Come, I know a great ramen place 20 minutes from here." "You mean at Tom's?" asked Dabi. "Tom?" Toga and Izuku asked. "Trust me, you'll love it," replied Sachi, as the four walked off. "And an extra large tonkatsu ramen for you," said Tom in a deep, burly voice. "Thank you," smiled Izuku, slightly intimidated by the bartender's appearance. "This is so good," Toga exclaimed, slurping down her rare beef ramen. "Glad you like it, little girl," replied Tom, passing her and Izuku a glass of milk. "And this is on the house. Who do you take us for?" The two growled, feeling insulted from the man's offer. "So, that's a no?" asked Tom, backing away slowly. "Are you kidding me?" asked the two, gulping the milk down in unison. "Of course not. Who would pass off a free drink?" While that happened, Dabi and talked to Sachi about their business practices. "No support gear?" asked Dabi. "Well, there's your problem. Info brokers have to sell alternative products, buddy. Doesn't that kinda defeat the purpose?" asked Sachi. "Yeah, but info brokers will never make it far from selling just information. You need weapons, buddy, weapons," replied Dabi. "Well, we're down on luck then," replied Sachi. Picking up Izuku's backpack and unloading it onto the counter, "The only thing you'll find here is paper, pens, some makeshift weapons, anything store-bought can replace it." Suddenly, an old rag that looks like it was a former wallet fell out from the bag. "This thing?" asked Sachi. "Oh, that?" asked Izuku. "That's just the wallet from some sludge villain I grabbed by accident." "You stole a wallet?" asked Sachi, sorting through it. "At least check it for valuables." "I did," replied Izuku, "and all there was in there were old coins, expired coupons, and some weird business card." However, looking closer at the business card, Sachi noticed something on the back. "Izu bro, there's an address on the back." Intrigued, Izuku took a look at the back. Indeed, there it was, an address. "Where do you think it leads to?" asked Dabi. "I dunno," replied Izuku. "Let's go check it out." "Ew, this is exciting," said Toga. "It's like a treasure hunt." As they left the ramen place, Tom looked at the four of them walking off, smiling. "Haven't had such nice customers in years," Tom said to himself. Usually, at this hour, that asshole would come in and, "Oi fuckbeard, extra spicy judon, extra large," yelled Katsuki, another regular of the shop, who just barged in by kicking the door open. "Here we go again," thought Tom, rolling his eyes. "Right away," replied Tom. "And may I interest you in today's specialty, the Prozac pot?" "Are we there yet, Izuku?" "We've been walking for hours," Toga exclaimed. "Almost there," replied Izuku. "All right, so according to Google Maps, poor destination should be coming up here, kid, that's an abandoned clinic," said Dabi. The four's high hopes were immediately shot down. Then again, what were they expecting from an address coming from a homeless guy's wallet? For all they knew, It was the address for his crack den. Just then, Sachi went in. "Sachi, where are you going?" asked Izuku. "I came all the way out here. Results must be yielded, damn it," replied Sachi. "Now come on, we got some exploring to do." "Is he okay?" asked Toga. "No, pretty sure he's dead," replied Dabi. "Well, time to fish out the corpse then," added Izuku, heading in, followed by everybody else. "Sachi, you there?" asked Izuku. Suddenly, laughter can be heard deep down in the abandoned clinic. "Sachi, are you okay, buddy? Did you hit your head somewhere?" asked Toga. "Guys, come down here. You have to see this," yelled Sachi's voice. As the three ran deeper into the clinic, finding a flight of stairs, they ran down it, only to find a dead end. "Guys, I have a bad feeling about this," said Izuku, scared. "What's wrong? Afraid of the dark?" asked Toga, clutching tightly onto Izuku. "'Cause I'm super afraid." "This can't be right." Sachi's voice came from right here. "Where is he?" asked Izuku. Suddenly, hands came out of the walls, slowly creeping towards Izuku. However, Dabi saw them just in time. "Izuku, look out!" exclaimed Dabi, trying to punch one of the hands, only to lose balance and falls forward. However, instead of falling face first into the wall, he phased right through, finding himself face to face with Sachi, as well as falling on top of him. "Sachi," asked Dabi. "I am so glad you didn't set me on fire," replied Sachi, in cold sweat. Izuku and Toga followed, only to see the two on top of each other. I'll leave the two of you alone," they said, slowly sinking back into the fake wall. "Wait, guys, you have to see this first," said Sachi, getting up and heading to a light switch, pulling it, voila. Suddenly, the dark room became illuminated, revealing shelves after shelves of different gadgets, equipment, weapons, and other support gear. "What the hell? What is all this?" exclaimed Izuku. "I know, right? We came across the jackpot," exclaimed Sachi. "This place, it has to be some sort of storage unit for support gears. But why isn't it empty? And why a clinic?" asked Dabi. "I dunno, but either way, it seems as though we've found our products to sell," said Sachi. "Come on, grab a crate. We'll pick this place dry." As everyone started to sort through the different support gears, as well as trying a few out, Izuku noticed that the boxes had a symbol on them. Looking closely, he was able to find the word Blue Jay written on each box. "Blue Jay," Izuku muttered, looking through his phone. However, the search result shocked him to the core. A hero support gear company that closed its doors after the sudden death of its CEO and founder Hisashi Midori. "Dad." Two groups chattered under the light of a dark warehouse. On one end was a young boy whose face was hidden by a face mask with an upside-down smile, while wearing a modified All Might hoodie who's been spray-painted into black and red. While on the other end was a group of hardened, seasoned thugs, ready to take on any heroes by any means necessary. As their business talk came to a close, the boy pulled out a briefcase filled with high-grade weapons. "Here, the vault breakers, like you asked. Now, the payment," said the boy. The leader, a man nearly 15 feet tall, picked up the gear, inspecting it. He smiled. "I'm not gonna lie, these gears are impressive," said the villain, "but here's the thing. You see, the whole reason why we're doing this robbery is because we're short on cash, so we won't be able to pay you just yet. However, there's only one of you and 9 of us, so it's not like you have the say in the deal to begin with." "Implying?" asked the boy. "That's we won't pay you a dime." Laughed the leader, as the rest of his goons laughed with him. "I figured as much," said the boy, walking off. "Deal with them." Suddenly, 2 shadows zoomed by the group, as 4 of the 9 villains collapsed with their necks slit. In shock, the rest banded together. "What the heck was that?" exclaimed the leader. Suddenly, what sounded like gunshots rang throughout the warehouse, as one of the villain were riddled with holes. "He had backup. That bastard. After him," yelled the leader, as he and his last 2 partners charged at Izuku. Just then, a lanky man emerged from the shadows between the 2 groups, extending his palms at the group. Suddenly, a blast of blue flames erupted from his palm. The villains tried to run, but found themselves stuck together from whatever reason. As the room lit up briefly, the last thing the villain leader saw were all the men who were seemingly working for that boy, casually sitting on nearby furniture and boxes, before the flames engulfed what was left of his group. As the flames cremated his flesh, he remembered one last warning that the man who recommended the vendor to him told him prior to these events. "And whatever you do, never pick a fight with Mightless. He may look weak, but no one who's tried to double-cross him came out unscathed." While initially he brushed off the warning, thinking that all the things he heard of the mysterious vendor were rumors, he now realized that in the end, he should have listened. Not that it would help him currently anyway, as his life shortly ended afterwards as his charred remains were approached by a masked gentleman-looking fellow, whom compressed the corpses into pearls and tossed them out the window and into the river. "Twice, final tally of the day," said Izuku. "Boss, we're rich. We earn jack shit," exclaimed a man in gray spandex. "I'm starting to wonder why I left you in charge," Izuku commented, as he took off his mask. In the following weeks of business, Izuku saw his group growing larger and larger over time. With his work finally yielding noticeable results, he managed to build a formidable reputation in the criminal underworld. Heroes started to lose more and more frequently, and more people are flocking to him to seek gear and information. As of the day Dabi joined, he was able to acquire 4 new members to the team. Well, with that mess out of the way, I think we should call it a day, said Spinner, a lizard man whom Izuku encountered before in the past. Now, I know this awesome new arcade down the street, if any of you wanna come hang out. I was actually kinda hoping to go to a bar, said Magni, a former woman who transitioned, charged with several cases of attempted murder and 2 cases of actual murder on paper, of which one was self-defense and the other she was framed. I mean, you two could go to your separate desired places. Once you're off duty, I don't care what happens to you, said Izuku, before Dabi smacked him in the back of the head. Too soft. Izuku, you're being way too soft on your men, said Dabi. If you're gonna lead us, then act like a competent leader. You're being too hard on him, Dabi, exclaimed Sachi, patting Izuku on the head. He's only 14 and still leading a double life as a normal middle schooler. Give him a break. I think he's doing an excellent job. Oh boy, here we go again, commented Toga, as she leaned against the wall, watching the two argue. Are they always like that? Asked Mr. Compress, their most recent member. Oh yeah, they do, replied Toga, while anorexic Frankenstein monster over here wants Izuku to man up and stand up for himself more. Oni-chan Sachi over here acts like a doting big brother and just flat out wants to spoil him rotten. I keep telling you, he's not your little brother, exclaimed Dabi. He started this whole thing, so it's his responsibility to own up. He recruited us because he can't do this alone. It's our duty to support him, replied Sachi. And in turn, it's his duty to support us, yelled Dabi. Guys, well, I think he's doing a pretty good job at it, retorted Sachi. Guys, if he was, he would have made his own decision. So what's it gonna be? Bar or arcade? Exclaimed Dabi. Everyone's already gone for the arcade, said Izuku. What? Exclaimed Dabi. Yeah, they discussed things amongst each other and decided that since we usually hang out at Tom's, who's pretty much a bar, we could try something new. Sachi flashed a smug smile at Dabi, proving him that the group has enough self-autonomy and that he was wrong about how hard Izuku needed to get. Well, for the record, I would have chosen the bar, exclaimed Dabi, stomping off. Like what most people imagined, the arcade was bustling with people. Luckily, no one in the group are very well known when it came to being villains, so no one really bothered with most of the group, besides Dabi that was. While Spinner and Izuku were having the time of their lives taking each other on at Street Fighter 20, while Toga watched while acting as Izuku's cheerleader, Magni met up with Mr. Compress, now without the ridiculous outfit, at the snack bar. Welcome to the team, buddy, she greeted. So, how's it been so far? Honestly, surprising, replied Mr. Compress. This Izuku kid really knows his stuff when it comes to heroes. Honestly, I'm amazed he's even a villain. Guess villains come in all shapes and sizes nowadays, said Magni. In fact, I've heard rumors going around about a kid with a toxic gas quirk who got back at his bullies by gassing his entire classroom and shooting up the knocked out corpses with his dad's revolver. And get this, he's only 12. No way, you're messing with me, laughed Mr. Compress. No really, it's true. The news covered the story and everything. There was also rumors about this German chick who's kidnapped 17 different people who's currently in this town, continued Magni. According to analysts, she was a spoiled brat whom saw people like objects and kidnaps them to add to her collection. Apparently, when her parents disowned her, she made them disappear and inherited all their possessions and money, which she utilizes to kidnap more people. Also, I heard that she's secretly an alien and that she has 12 eyes and there she goes, bloating rumors again just to mess with people, said Dabi, joining in on the conversation. Hey, if you're gonna exaggerate stories, at least make them believable. 12-eyed aliens, who's gonna believe that? Aliens? No way. I knew Area 51 was hiding something. Those damn dirty amazing Americans, exclaimed Twice, buying everything Magni just said. Well, besides complete meatheads, pouted Dabi. How do you even know she's lying? I mean, the alien part. If she comes here illegally, she's technically an alien, and with quirks nowadays giving people waffle irons for eyelids, 12 eyes is plausible, exclaimed Twice, pointing to a guy a few feet away with waffle irons for eyelids. Look, all I'm saying is unless that girl you speak of shows up behind me with her 12 eyes, I'm not gonna GAH, said Dabi, only to come face to face with a 12-eyed monster of sorts. GYAH. It was all true. Please don't lay eggs in me, Twice screeched, falling off the chair. Just kidding, it's me guys, said Sachi, popping out behind the giant plushie. See, what did I tell you? Said Dabi. Oh, by the way, I want you to meet Irina. She's apparently a tourist from Germany, said Sachi, moving to the left a bit to reveal a woman in her early 20s with long silky black hair and chestnut brown eyes, who was pressing against him, her hands firmly gripped to the giant plush toy he was holding. Sachi, for the last time, give me that plushie, she exclaimed. I want it fair and square. No, I specifically remember you dumping 50 of your coins into that claw machine and failing to win anything, replied Sachi. Then what happened? Oh right, I came in like need help, and got it first try. Well yeah, but I paid more than you, so I'm entitled to it, retorted Irina. Plus, I was the one who made the thing so big with my quirk. That's got to give me some rights to hold it. Well, here's the deal, you cuddle it on one end, and I'll cuddle it on the other, replied Sachi. How's that? No, I want all of it, said Irina, her grip getting more and more firm. Seeing her struggling, Sachi let out a small laugh. I'm just messing with you. Here you go, said Sachi, letting go. However, in doing so, Irina fell back, as all the resistance that forced her to pull back harder vanished all at once. Just then, Sachi dashed in, catching her before she hit the floor. Whoa there, close one, laughed Sachi awkwardly. Maybe I should have warned you that I was letting go. However, the two suddenly realized how close they were to each other, as they both saw the rest of the group watching them in awe. Suddenly, Irina's face turned bright red. Dummy, she muttered. Huh? Asked Sachi. Dummy, she yelled, slapping Sachi in the face before stomping off with the giant plushie that she won, leaving the guy with a bright red hand-shaped mark on his face. Well, that went well, said Sachi optimistically, rubbing his newly formed bruise. Sachi, who is that girl and where'd you meet her? Asked Magni. Oh, I was at Tom's a week ago when I bumped into her. She looked new around, so I decided to approach her. Apparently, she was a tourist and wanted me to show her around town. Of course, being the nice guy that I was, I accepted. Then she tried to kidnap you, said Dabi. How'd you know? Asked Sachi, surprised. Just a hunch, he replied. Well, give your hunch a raise, cause he was right on the money. Next thing I know, I was shrunk down to the size of an action figure and put into a bag. Apparently she was gonna add me to her collection. How terrible, said Dabi. So, how'd you escape? Unless you're dead and we're talking to your corporeal ghost. Well, let's just say the 1% are assholes, answered Sachi. What do you mean? Asked Magni. Turns out her whole life, everyone only valued her for her monetary value. Even her own parents didn't see her as a person, but as a vessel for their money. And apparently when you don't get treated like a human being, you don't know how to treat other like human beings. So, let's just say when I showed sympathy and compassion to her, through a jar, she just couldn't process things and just broke, explained Sachi. She freed me, but I felt kinda bad knowing I was the first person to ever show kindness to her, so for the moment, we are kinda dating. So, does she know what you do? Asked Dabi. She knows everything, replied Sachi. I kinda had to spill the beans to connect to her more. You know, you're a criminal, I'm a criminal, birds of a feather kind of deal. Hearing this, Dabi rubbed his forehead in frustration. And what makes you think she won't tell anyone about this? Asked Dabi. Come on Dabi, don't be so paranoid. She has nothing to gain turning us in. Geez, I swear, you can be such a buzzkill sometimes, said Sachi. We did our job for the day, now's the time to have fun. Anyways, I've had enough rest. I'm gonna go see if anyone's topped my Dance Guitar Hero high score in the 10 minutes I was gone. I swear, I feel like the only professional around here at times. We're supposed to be a serious group of villains, yet we have no established leader, no base of operations, and no group name. Dabi grunted. Meanwhile, with Sachi, as he approached a gathered crowd of people, he noticed a pink blur on the DDGH machine he topped. Shuffling to the front of the crowd, his jaw was left agape as not only has his high score had been beaten, but it's been doubled over. Go Mina, you're on fire today. Some of the people cheered. Who is she? Asked Sachi. Just a regular at this arcade. She shows up every now and then, gets a new high score at every rhythm game, buys a drink and leaves. People call her Pinky, because when she plays, most people just see a pink blur, said a bystander. As the song finished, Mina took a drink out of her bottle as a few of her friends clapped for her. That was awesome, Ashido-san, exclaimed one of her friends. I think you just set a personal record. Aw, stop it guys, you're flattering me, Mina sheepishly replied. I didn't even think a score of 9,999,999 was even possible, said Sachi, walking in. You're good. Thanks, it's a hobby of mine, replied Mina. Hey, aren't you the guy who had the previous high score? Asked one of the bystanders. Man, you must feel pretty bad getting beat by a middle schooler. Well, your score certainly looks hard to beat, said Sachi, taking off his coat. For an amateur. The crowd grew larger as more and more commotion stirred. Is that a challenge? Asked Mina, grinning. If that's what you want, replied Sachi, I'll play. All right then, said Mina, taking a 10 yen bill and placing it on the machine. You're on. Meanwhile, while Izuku was taking a leak at the bathroom, he noticed a dark figure approach him from the bathroom mirror. Quickly turning around, he noticed a cloud of black mist. Upon closer inspection, he realized that mist was actually a person. "I take it you must be Mightless," said the mist. "Who are you and how did you get here?" asked Izuku, quickly putting on his mask to hide his identity. "My name is..." Suddenly, the bathroom door opened as the misty figure disappeared in an instant. Some dude came in, took a piss, then went to the sink next to Izuku, washing his hands. "Nice mask, kid," said the guy. "There's these two guys squaring off at the DDGH machines. They've already played 6 rounds and are still at a stalemate. You should check it out." As he left, the misty figure returned. "Let's take this somewhere more private, shall we?" asked the figure as he wrapped himself around Izuku before he could protest. As the dark mist clouding his vision dissipated, Izuku found himself in a bar somewhat similar to Tom's, but a tad smaller. At the corner of the bar, he noticed a man with light blue hair covered in hands, which he almost chuckled at due to how ridiculous he thought the costume looked. "Alright, if this is about that Kink Kingdom membership submission, I clicked the wrong accept button when pirating anime movies, okay," laughed Izuku. "No, but really, what is all this? I hate this kid already," muttered the blue-haired hand man. "Give him a chance, Shigaraki," said the Black Mist. "If we want to successfully kill All Might, we need more recruits." Upon hearing this, however, Izuku laughed even harder. Kill All Might. PFFTTT. What, are you gonna choke him with your 16 different hands? I swear, I've heard some of the wildest claims from clients in my last few weeks of operation, but this takes the cake. Shigaraki became more and more irritated as the glass he was holding crumbled to sand. "Allow us to introduce ourselves first," said the Black Mist. "My name is Kurogiri, this is Shigaraki, and we are the League of Villains." League? Unless the rest of you are all hiding underneath the bar counter, I'd call this more of a duo than anything, Izuku said, jokingly. "That's exactly why we need you." A third voice came from the TV. "Oh. And sorry for the late introduction, I am All For One, the leader of the League of Villains." "My pleasure," replied Izuku. "Anyways, please elaborate. How are you planning to kill All Might?" "I suggest looking behind you," replied All For One. "Behind me, GAH. Izuku wondered, only to realize the 15 feet tall Goliath standing behind him. "This is a Namu, a genetically engineered artificial human with multiple quirks. I made him specifically to combat All Might," explained All For One, "and furthermore, we have intel of a very crucial weakness that All Might possesses." That last bit of information intrigued Izuku. For a good while, he was certain that he was the only one who knew about All Might's weakness. But after seeing that Namu and the reveal that these people might know the weakness, Izuku started to take these people a lot more seriously. "So, this weakness, what exactly is it?" asked Izuku, playing dumb. "We could tell you, if you consider joining us," said All For One. "A bluff? Is this what it's all about?" asked Izuku. The three villains let out a noticeable gasp of shock. "If you know about me, then you must know that I deal in business," explained Izuku, trying to squeeze the info out of the group, "and from experience, I can tell when someone is trying to con others to join them. Anyone can just say they know of All Might's weakness. Heck, I've seen people use that sort of stuff as YouTube clickbait. If you're just trying to recruit thugs, I can definitely see dimwits joining your ranks as disposable cannon fodder, but I'm smart enough to see that you want more than just another troop on the front line when you sent your goons to recruit me. That being said, I'm not convinced that you know All Might's weakness, and thus, I see no reason why I should help you in your quest. Of course, we can still do business. I can never turn down a potential client after all." The three villains were at awe at the brilliance of Izuku. However, All For One let out a small chuckle. "I understand, you're not convinced," said All For One. "However, I also know that you're quirkless. I never hid that fact, so no surprise there," replied Izuku. "What if I told you I can give you a quirk?" asked All For One. "And not only that, but a powerful one that can help you finally get revenge on the ones that wronged you." Izuku froze. "Why, you're bluffing. There's no way that's possible. I have created that Namu, have I not? What makes giving a living human being a quirk impossible if even that was possible?" asked All For One. Upon hearing this, Izuku took a seat, now very interested in the whole situation. After all these years, discriminated for not having a quirk, the idea of finally getting one and using it for revenge got Izuku extremely excited. "You know, I have a burning hatred towards All Might as well," said Izuku, "and I just so happen to also know his weakness." "You do?" asked All For One, shocked. "Indeed," replied Izuku, "but there are also a handful of things I don't know about All Might. But a handful of things I do know that may help your cause. So, I suppose that means that you're joining?" asked All For One. "Yes, but on 3 conditions," replied Izuku. "I'm listening," replied All For One. "No civilian deaths," said Izuku. "They are not part of anything. To me, only the guilty deserve death." "A sense of justice," scoffed Shigaraki. "How annoying. He sounds almost like that Stain fellow we tried to recruit 4 days ago. Secondly, I get free reign over my own operations, and only take orders if they're from you." added Izuku. Anything planned by Shigaraki goes by me first, explained All for One, so technically, any of his orders are my orders too. Fine, said Izuku. And your third condition? Asked Izuku. I get to bring my own crew, said Izuku. A few moments later, the rest of Izuku's group showed up at the hideout. So this is the place, said Dabi. It's quaint. Yes, very. Very cool, said Sachi, his eyes cloudy and gray. What's up with Sachi? Asked Magni. He lost 10 yen to some girl at the arcade, replied Toga. Think he's really not taking that loss very well. By 10 points, Sachi muttered. Only 10 points. So, is Stain here? Asked Spinner. It's just these guys, explained Izuku. What kind of bullshit league is this then? False advertising. I'm accusing you of false advertising. As the group got settled in, however, Kurogiri noticed Shigaraki feeling unwell. Is everything all right, Shigaraki? Asked Kurogiri. No, it's not, exclaimed Shigaraki, silencing the group. I told you to recruit the best of the best, yet what do I get? A gaggle of college co-eds who's just made this place their new Starbucks. With all due respect, Mightless's gang has taken out countless powerful villain groups and heroes alike. They will be a great asset to the team, said Kurogiri. Besides, they've already struck a deal with All for One, so their stay is inevitable. I get to decide that, exclaimed Shigaraki. Namu, kill them. Suddenly, the Namu got up, slowly stomping towards the group. Hey, what gives? I totally expected this. Asked twice. You may have fooled Sensei, but he's not here to save your ass this time, Mightless, exclaimed Shigaraki. I'm the boss here, and I say that if you want to join us, then defeat this Namu. Upon hearing this, Sachi walked up confidently. That doesn't sound too bad, said Sachi. I mean, with all this bulk, he's probably as slow as a... Before he got to finish, a lightning fast jab connected with Sachi's face. If it weren't for Magni and Mr. Compress to intervene by pulling Sachi back, his head would have been sent flying off his body. Holy cow, that was a punch, uttered Sachi, bleeding from the nose. Everyone, get him, exclaimed Izuku, as the group attacked all at once. Dabi let out a burst of flame, but the Namu weaved aside, swinging at Dabi with a left hook. Just then, Magni used her quirk to pull Dabi back, allowing him to dodge the swing. Toga then jumped in, using the giant arm as foothold to leap onto the ceiling, tossing a barrage of throwing knives at the Namu's exposed brain. However, the Namu raised his right arm to block the upcoming knives, leaving his stomach exposed. This allowed Izuku to dash in, holding a metal pipe, hitting the Namu with all of his strength. However, despite becoming a lot strongest these past few weeks from constant running, the attack stopped firmly, not even flinching the beast. Having noticed Izuku, the Namu grabbed him, tossing him at the wall. He's gonna splatter onto the wall, yelled twice in fear and excitement at the same time. Luckily, Mr. Compress made a hole appear in the wall before Izuku hit. As he flew outside, pressing on one of his belt's compartments, an air cushion expanded from his back, breaking his fall. I sure am glad I kept a handful of support gear on me, Izuku said to himself, as he saw the Namu break through the wall, chasing him. Just then, Spinner between the two, as he swung his amalgamation of swords and knives at the Namu. However, the creature shattered the weapon with a swing of his fists, not even slowing down. Luckily, Toga jumped in just in time, grabbing Izuku and tackling him out of the way. He's tough, said Spinner, getting back up. None of our attacks are having any effect on him. Just then, a barrage of bullets impacted the Namu, as Sachi stood by the doorway. However, aside from a few burn marks, the attack was useless. Bullets aren't working either, said Sachi. Izuku, can you deduce this thing's weakness? Asked Toga. Yeah, just give me a minute, said Izuku, getting back up. Surround the thing. It's time we show this hand fetishist how we handle threats. Got it, everyone said in unison, as they surrounded the Namu like a pack of wolves. Dabi, unleash a massive cloud of fire to hinder the Namu's vision. Twice, make a few clones to distract the Namu. Compress, follow up by compressing the Namu's limbs once the fire clears up. Toga, Spinner, use bladed weapons to keep the pressure on. It seems that he's only resistant to blunt object attacks. And Sachi, provide cover fire, ordered Izuku. Dabi quickly fired a blast of flames at the Namu. Just then, the creature charged through the flames, its flesh singed, shattering Dabi in a single punch. However, he melted upon contact with the fist, as the real Dabi hit him from behind with an even bigger flame wall. Just then, spherical holes appeared in the flames, as Mr. Compress created a path through the torrent of blue fire to reach the Namu, planning on compressing him. However, the Namu saw the attack coming, attempting to swing at Mr. Compress. Just then, the beast felt a strong pull, as he was pulled back off balance, whiffing the attack by a hair. So this thing was originally male, said Magni, using her quirk on the creature. How gross. But unbalanced, Compress was able to reach the Namu's head, attempting to compress it. However, the beast twisted himself midair as the magician got its shoulder instead, and the rest of the arm hit him like a baseball bat, sending him flying several feet away. We got its left arm disabled. Keep it up, exclaimed Izuku. However, just then, muscles and ligaments started to emerge from the wound, quickly repairing the Namu's lost shoulder. I almost forgot to mention. These Namu all have hyper-regeneration, laughed Shigaraki, watching while holding a bucket of popcorn. Along with enhanced stamina, it's an indestructible beast that won't fall. Ooh, I can't wait to see it tear you apart. Damn it, muttered Izuku. It's no good, Izuku, exclaimed Spinner. Bladed weapons only leave shallow wounds. His skin is too thick. Toga ducked under another one of the Namu's punches, this time stabbing it between the legs. This thing must not feel pain, because even attacking its man weakness doesn't seem to do anything, said Toga as the creature swiped at her, ripping off one of her sleeves. Hands off. Damn it, muttered Izuku. So even if we manage to hurt it, it will just regenerate. No, it must have a weakness somewhere. Come on, Izuku, you're our strategist. Surely you can think of something, said Sachi, firing several ineffective shots at the beast. I'm trying, but, said Izuku. Flank left, steal aggro. Medic, Spinner exclaimed, as he dodged to the left, slashed the Namu in the forearms, which caused the Namu to retaliate, sending him flying into a wall with a backhand. I can't concentrate with Spinner making so many goddamn call-outs, exclaimed Izuku. Stop acting like we're in a. Suddenly, Izuku froze. Video game. Suddenly, Izuku slapped himself in the face. I'm such an idiot, said Izuku. He literally has a video game weakness and somehow I didn't notice. Wait, you figured it out, said Sachi. Well, what do you think we should attack? Asked Izuku, pointing at the Namu's head. Sachi thought for a bit. The giant exposed brain. The giant exposed brain, exclaimed Izuku. Oh dear God, why are we so dumb? Asked Sachi as he fired a round which hit the Namu right in the brain. Just then, the beast roared in pain, as its movements became more and more sluggish. It's working, exclaimed Izuku. Everyone, go for the brain. Roger, everyone else said in unison. Twice pulled out his ruler blade, slashing at the Namu's leg. This caused the beast to turn around, allowing Toga to leap in and plant a knife in the beast's brain. Once again, the monster started to thrash around in pain, flailing its arms in every direction to keep its enemies at bay. However, Magni, Dabi, and Spinner hugged each other tightly as Magni used her quirk on Spinner and Dabi. Since her magnetism is influenced by gender, two males would repel from each other if she used her quirk on both of them. This allowed Spinner to get launched several stories up into the air, as he charged straight down like an arrow, plunging his sword into the Namus. Aye, you missed, exclaimed Dabi. How can you miss? He was right there. Hey, it's not my fault, exclaimed Spinner, embarrassed. There wasn't any quick time events. Just then, the Namu shook Spinner off, as it charged at Dabi and Magni, the latter jumping into Dabi's arms in fear while the two screamed in fear. Just then, several blue pearls dropped from above, as they popped, exploding into blue flames. Those pearls contained the flames I compressed, explained Mr. Compress. How I managed to grab fire without getting burned. One of a magician's many tricks. As the Namu was buffered by the blue flames, Sachi ran in, jumping on the Namu's back, climbing onto its shoulders and pointing at the Namu's exposed brain. Now it's my turn to shine, exclaimed Sachi. Get some. He'd unloaded several rounds into the Namu's brain, as the beast wailed in pain. However, no matter how hard the Namu tried, it wouldn't shake Sachi off. I'll have you know a true champion of Dance Guitar Hero never loses his balance, exclaimed Sachi, as his was building up a three-finger shot. This next attack will be so strong it will blow your entire head off. Take WhatIf. Just then, the Namu ran himself into a wall, as Sachi's face came in contact with hard concrete, knocking him off the Namu. Sachi, everyone yelled, running towards him. However, the Namu stood right in front of him, still standing, but its injuries were no longer healing, as its brain was too damaged for the regeneration quirk to function properly. As it raised its arm, however, another figure closed in, touching a protruding rebar, as the bar grew in length, piercing the Namu's arm and stopping it in its tracks. This allowed the newcomer to grab Sachi and pull him to safety. Do you always get yourself in trouble like this? Asked the woman. What would have become of you without me? Rina, Sachi uttered out. What are you doing here? I was just passing by. Okay. She replied. It's not like I wanted to save you or anything. Don't tell me, he said, that you followed me all the way here. Irina blushed. I was worried about you. Okay, she exclaimed. When you told me you sold weapons and info to villains, all I could think of was you getting ripped apart out there. I mean, look at you. There's no way someone like you would have survived against a villain. It's your fault for dragging me into this mess. So take responsibility. Rina, I appreciate the help, but that thing you impaled is still alive and kicking, said Sachi, pointing behind her. Relax, I impaled it in the ligaments. No human would want to fight when they're in such pain, said Irina with confidence. Thing is, that thing's not human, said Sachi, as the beast ripped the rebar out of its arms, and it doesn't actually feel pain. Couldn't you have told me that sooner? Irina cried out as the two frantically scrambled out of the way of the Namu's descending fist. However, the Namu seemed to be on its last leg, as it was moving much slower now. However, with its muscles bulging, it was preparing for a final charge. "Izuku, look out, it's coming for you," exclaimed Sachi. "Shit," Izuku uttered out, as he tried to jump to safety. However, it was too late, as the Namu put the last ounces of its strength to dash at extreme speeds towards Izuku. Just then, Irina placed her palm on the ground, as a piece of road that was protruding from the ground grew in size, tripping the Namu up. This allowed Toga and Spinner to dash in, and using the Namu's accumulated momentum, slicing up the beast's legs, causing it to start rolling. Then came Dabi, or two Dabis, both blasting an equally powerful flame blast, burning up the Namu as it was steadily slowing down. With Magna's help, using her magnetism quirk to pull the Namu the opposite direction from where it was charging, the monster lost even more speed, and with Mr. Compress making the road extremely bumpy with his compression quirk, the charging beast finally came to a halt right in front of Izuku. We won," exclaimed Izuku. "We did it." His group cheered. Izuku looked at Shigaraki, expecting him to be fuming with rage. However, just then, the cheers turned into frantic cries. While initially hard to make out, he suddenly heard Sachi yelling louder than anyone else. "I see you, bro, look out." Turning around, the Namu stood up, its legs barely holding together as it pulled its severely damaged arm back. "No way," Izuku uttered. "It can still move even after all that." Izuku tried to dodge, but his legs gave away as the Namu's fist descended onto him. His eyes shut, Izuku expected the worst. However, the attack never came. Opening his eyes, he saw a portal that opened in front of him, warping away the Namu's attack. "That's enough, Namu, you can stop now," said Kurogiri. "Hero, what's the meaning of this? Things were just getting good," ranted Shigaraki. "Don't you think you're being unfair, Shigaraki-san?" asked Kurogiri. "This Namu was designed to kill All Might, and you're using it on a band of ragtag villains." "Well, just goes to show these guys aren't anti-All Might material," said Shigaraki. "They aren't supposed to be," said Kurogiri. "Our purpose isn't solely to kill All Might, and you know that. Besides, for that Namu to be damaged to this extent, I doubt even All Might himself could have done this much damage to it. I'm still not convinced." "Give me one reason why I should accept these buffoons," exclaimed Shigaraki. "And you give me a reason why I shouldn't punish you for your insolence." A third voice came in on TV. "S-sensei, you were here." "I was always here," said All for One, "and frankly, I am disappointed in you, Shigaraki. Not only have you gone against an agreement I made, but you damaged our main weapon against All Might and risked us getting found out." "Sorry, sensei, but no buts. Now leave," exclaimed All for One as a black sludge erupted from Shigaraki's mouth, engulfing him. "I'll deal with you later. Namu, stand down." As the Namu stumbled back into the base, Kurogiri ran to Izuku, picking him back up. "I apologize for Shigaraki's immaturity. Welcome to the League of Villains, Mightless," said Kurogiri. "Izuku, pardon, my real name, it's Izuku Midoriya," said Izuku. "Then welcome to the League of Villains, young Midoriya," said Kurogiri. However, upon hearing that name, All for One immediately turned off his feed as he collapsed into his chair, panting uncontrollably. "Midoriya, did he just say Midoriya?" All for One uttered out, trembling. Quickly, he ran to a nearby wall panel, quickly typing in a code as the wall itself opened, turning into a board filled with old posters, newspaper pages, articles, red strings linking all of these papers together. "Why is he here? He shouldn't be here." All for One uttered out, "It can't be." Ripping out the nearest page of a newspaper, he stared down at it as it surfaced haunting memories that even made him, the greatest villain known to man, tremble in fear. On the newspaper, it read "Mysterious explosion on Miyako Island. Investigations still underway. Have your plans still not been stopped?" All for One asked to himself, Hisashi Midoriya. 3 months. That is how long Izuku has led his double life as a villain for. After narrowly dodging certain death countless times, befriending dozens of allies and backstabbing only one non-trustworthy member, that being a murderer known as Muscular, the young boy had finally started to make progress in his quest to tear apart the Hero Society and get revenge on All Might. And of all times, only now does he get sick. 41.6, asked Inko, staring at the thermometer. "Your fever's only been getting worse, Izuku." "I am fine, Mom, really," Izuku replied weakly, trying to get out of bed. "Sorry, dear, but you're not getting out of bed until this fever of yours goes down," exclaimed Inko. "Now stay put while I make you some rice porridge." As she leaves the room, however, Izuku punches his bed in anger. "Damn it," Izuku thought, his face puffing red and sweaty. "Of all times to get sick, and it had to be the day I get my first big mission in the league." Struggling to get up, he hears a jingle next to him. His phone was getting flooded with notifications. Probably the guys must get going, Izuku thought. Weakly extending his hand to reach the phone, "I'll reply to them and move out." However, merely lifting his head required him to use every ounce of strength he had to accomplish. As he picked up the phone, it felt like a brick of pure lead. His vision getting fuzzy, he hazily opened his Line app, attempting to reply to the flood of texts from his friends and partners, telling him he was running late. Sadly, it was all in vain, as his phone fell next to his semi-conscious body as he passed out. After what felt like hours, Izuku woke up to distant voices, familiar ones that he couldn't make out. However, as his eyes adjusted, his eyes averted to two blonde buns of what he deduced as hair, before realizing that his pillow felt a lot softer than before. "Wakey wakey, sleepyhead," said a familiar voice. "TT Toga," Izuku exclaimed, realizing that he was lying on her lap. "What are you doing here?" "We came to check on you, silly." Toga laughed, booping Izuku's nose. Turning around, he saw the entire league of villains, barring Shigaraki, chilling in his room. "I helped myself with your mom's rice porridge, sorry," said Sachi, still with his mouth full. "It was really good if it makes you feel any better." 37.9 said Dabi, getting better. "Congratulations, little boss. You're terminally ill," exclaimed twice. "Wait, how did my mom let you guys in?" asked Izuku. "Your mom's still home?" asked Spinner, playing on Izuku's Nintendo Switch. "You didn't check," everyone exclaimed. "You had one job." "Izuku, is everything alright?" Inko's voice came from outside his room. "Shit, hide everyone," yelled Arena, as everyone scrambled into the closet as soon as the door opened. As Inko entered, she saw Izuku, still on his bed, though a little flustered. "I heard something coming from your room. Is everything fine?" asked Inko. "Yeah," replied Izuku. "Say, can you maybe make some katsudon for dinner?" "Sorry dear, but we're out of noodles," replied Inko. "Can you maybe go buy some?" asked Izuku, putting up his best begging face. "Please?" Inko's face suddenly became 10x more detailed, as she suddenly grew 10 feet tall with defined muscle. "Right away," she said in a deep-pitched voice, fully motivated as she dashed out to the supermarket. As that happened, the closet door caved in, as everyone in the league came barreling out of the closet. "Okay, we had 2 quirk users who could have shrunken us down to take up less space," yelled Dabi. "So why did I have to spend 2 minutes with twice as ass pressed on me? I think I broke something," groaned Spinner, knowing Sachi. "There's gonna be a coming out the closet joke in 3.2.1, said Arena. "So this is what being gay feels like," joked Sachi. "Anticipation dampens the pain, but not enough," she replied, collapsing. Why this was happening. A portal suddenly appeared near the door as Kurogiri came out with a pink apron, towel, and tub of warm water. Everyone turned around, looking at him with deadpan eyes. "Am I late?" he asked. A few moments later, the league started making themselves at home in Izuku's bedroom. While Kurogiri wiped Izuku's back with a wet towel, with Toga watching, drooling, the sick boy talked to Dabi and Sachi about the mission. "So, how did the mission go?" asked Izuku. "Oh, it went great," Arena started. "Naturally, I did most of the hard work, while everyone admired my greatness." Translation: she stepped in dog turd, then spent half the mission looking for a stick to pick the crap off, then was hit in the head by a flying tire and knocked out of the rest of the mission. Sachi cut in. "Hey, I helped you know. Who was it that shrunk the group so that they could fit through that gap and escape?" Arena retorted. "And besides, all you did was try to sneak past the guards with a trench coat and get dogpiled. Are we sure you guys didn't fail and the police are outside our door?" asked Izuku. "Let's just say it could have went a lot better," the two said in unison, lowering their heads in shame. "Geez, you guys are hopeless without me," replied Izuku. "What was the objective of the mission anyways?" "We were supposed to collect data on recent villains from the police headquarters," explained Dabi. "We had a strategy meeting before the heist, and of course, you, the only one in our group that had authority to disagree with that hand fetishist's dumbass plans, didn't show up. I take it his plans weren't that good," guessed Izuku. "Well, I'm pretty sure every plan is a massive red flag when it is written in crayon," said Dabi, and step 4 was just a drawing of him stabbing All Might with what looked like a dildo. "Scissors, they were scissors," explained Kurogiri, as he set Izuku down on his bed, placing a towel over his head. "Now, you get some rest while I remake another rice porridge." "Oh, can you also make some pizza?" asked Spinner, who just finished beating the last game Izuku owned. "How the hell did he beat Rainbow Devil first try?" Izuku commented in the background, looking at Spinner beating all the hard levels he couldn't complete. "Oh, and fix me some sushi," said Twice. "I hate sushi. And some beer, if there is some," said Dabi. "Guys, do I look like a butler?" Kurogiri exclaimed. "Well, if you added a bow tie," commented Arena. "Forget it," Kurogiri sighed, continuing his journey to the kitchen. As this happened, Toga sat by Izuku's bed, leaning on him slowly. "So, Izuku, how's it been?" asked Toga. Izuku turned to Toga in shock. "Wow, you of all people to ask me that." "Excuse me," Toga asked. "Sorry, it's just that we didn't really start off on a strong note." Izuku laughed. You know, you kidnapped me, cut me, then tried to drink my blood. I know you're my friend, but the way you approached me never really screamed I care for you as a person. And somehow you assumed I didn't care for your well-being after I caught you when you nearly fell off a building," asked Toga. "Well, I dunno, maybe I'm just too used to the old you," replied Izuku. "I changed, Izuku. Sure, maybe not too much, but enough that I genuinely care for you when it really counts," said Toga. "You may not believe it, but it was me who suggested everyone that we should check on you when you didn't show up for the mission." "You did?" asked Izuku. "Yeah, and once we found out you were sick, I took the initiative of changing your clothes and bed sheets," Toga continued. "Well, I had an ulterior motive that time, but you get the idea." Izuku looked in awe at Toga's comment. Maybe it was because of his time spent with Katsuki, but he now realized that he seemingly forgot that people could change over time. Looking down at his body, he also begun to realize how much he changed over the mere 3 months he had been active. His scrawny figure had been replaced with a somewhat muscular and lean body, with decently built abs and a six-pack that was looking more and more defined despite doing nothing but running away from trouble, fighting for his life and having his close encounters with death the past 3 months. He had changed so much from his past self that all he had to do was take one good long look in the mirror. But it wasn't just him. Looking around, he saw so many people in his room, so many people he knew. So many people that cared for him enough to actually show up when he was at his weakest. Only now that he has so many friends did he realize how lonely he had been up until now. Seeing this, he felt an indescribable warmth within him. Unable to hold it back, tears started to form around his eyes. "Izuku, everything all right?" asked Toga. "Why, yeah," Izuku replied. "It's just..." Suddenly, Izuku hugged Toga tightly, as everyone else noticed. "Only now do I realize I have so many friends who care about me," Izuku cried. "Thank you all." "Aw, Izuku, no need to thank us, you're making me blush," Sachi replied sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head. Suddenly, a giant portal opened up above Sachi as an entire table full of food was dropped on him. "Dinner's ready," said Kurogiri, coming through the door. "Oh boy, finally, all this gaming's making me hungry," said Spinner, stepping over Sachi's body. As this happened, Toga grabbed the rice porridge Kurogiri prepared, topped with fried seaweed, sesame seeds and shredded dry pork, as she took a spoonful and extended it over to Izuku. She teased. "Toga, I can do this myself," Izuku replied, embarrassed. "I know you can, but I want to do it anyways," said Toga. Seeing how she went through all this trouble merely getting here for him, Izuku let out a sigh and out of kindness opened his mouth as letting in the airplane. However, as Izuku did so, Sachi, who just got back up, pushed Toga aside with a piece of chicken cutlet. You to Sachi," Izuku exclaimed, swallowing his mouthful of porridge. "I used to do this all the time with my little brother back at the hospital," replied Sachi. "It was the cutest thing ever." "I'm not a goddamn bunny," Izuku yelled, trying to grab the chopsticks from Sachi, but found himself too weak to do so. "Damn fever." "Don't get too worked up, little Midoriya," said Kurogiri, enjoying his dinner with the rest of the gang. "Fevers go down faster when you rest." Unable to fight back, Izuku simply had to accept defeat, swallowing his pride, along with the chicken cutlet that Sachi fed him. However, that was not the end of it, as Spinner then butted in with a piece of sushi. "Spinner, I see the giant chunk of wasabi you hid between the salmon and I see Mr. Compress with the camera. Just do it for the lols," Spinner replied, stuffing the sushi into Izuku's mouth as he was talking, as flames erupted from his nostrils as a result, as everyone at the table laughed. Just then, Magni came in, patting him gently in the head. "Don't take it personally. We're laughing with you, not at you. We still love you deep down," she said, handing him some milk, now open wide. "Oh, for the love of God," Izuku replied, gulping down another mouthful of milk. At least this time it wasn't shoved down his throat. "Hey, you guys want to join in? It's actually kind of fun," said Magni, "like feeding a baby rabbit." "One step ahead of you, sis," replied Dabi, handing Izuku a handful of roasted peanuts. "With your hand?" Izuku asked. "You want me to eat off your hand? Why didn't I think of that?" Toga said to herself, glaring at Dabi with jealousy. "You're not actually gonna do it, are you?" asked Arena. "I betcha 5,000 yen he does," Sachi replied. Izuku on the other hand gave a disconcerting look at Dabi, trying to see if he was actually serious, seeing how his hands weren't gonna leave his face anytime soon. And he didn't really have the energy to just take the peanuts out of his hand. Izuku actually started to lean forward. "Oh dear God, he's actually doing it," said Arena, blushing. "I can hear the typing of 1,000 fanfictions right now," said Sachi. However, as Izuku closed his eyes, he felt something wouldn't enter his mouth. Looking up, he saw Dabi, using his other hand to stuff a mouthful of rice via chopstick. "I was just messing with ya," Dabi laughed. "If Spinner hadn't done it already, I would have stuffed you with wasabi instead. It's a prank I used to pull on my little brother." "Good damn it, Dabi, just when it was getting good," Toga pouted. Now the rest of the scene can only play in my fantasy. Meanwhile, Kurogiri stared at his plate, as if he was in trance. Kurogiri, why are you staring at that fish? Asked Sachi, trying to teleport it into your stomach or something. Kurogiri on the other hand turned to Sachi. Ever feel like you're forgetting something? Asked Kurogiri. If you forgot about it, then it was never important to begin with, replied Sachi. I guess you're right, replied Kurogiri, as he took a bite out of his grilled mackerel. Meanwhile, heavy rain poured, as Shigaraki stood at the side of the road, near the spot where he always stops by whenever he was done with a mission assigned to him by All for One, waiting for Kurogiri to warp him back to the hideout as he was getting soaked from head to toe. Any minute now, he said, as passers avoided him, creeped out by his appearance. Wonder what's taking him so long. Suddenly, a random bird swooped in, grabbing the hand on Shigaraki's face and flying off with it. God damn it, that's the 4th time today. Get back here, you avian scumbag. However, as he chased the bird down, it dropped its hand in midair, as it became too heavy for the bird to carry, causing the accessory to drop into a woman's handbag. Seeing this, Shigaraki grabbed the handbag, trying to take back his hand mask while making sure to keep one finger away in order to not disintegrate it by accident. However, in doing so, the woman turned around, mistaking him for a mugger. Give me that bag, Shigaraki yelled out. Wait, no, stop. The woman exclaimed, there's no money in there, only Izuku's groceries. I said give it to me. Shigaraki yelled savagely, as he lunged at Inko, trying to kill her. As he did so, the bag tore open as his hand fell out. Seeing this, he pushed Inko aside, attempting to grab it. Suddenly, he stopped midair, unable to even lift a finger. The woman let out a light green glow, as her hair raised up, her eyes glowing green and crackling with electricity. Forgive me for this, she said, as the villain was suddenly thrown against the wall. Then on the pavement, before flying face first into a trash can. Geez, now the meat and noodles got all wet. I'm gonna have to go back and buy more. What the hell was she? Shigaraki uttered, as he lost consciousness. Back with Izuku and Ko, as they finished dining. The TV spinner left open suddenly let out static, drawing everyone's attention. I was wondering why you didn't show up, young Midoriya, said a familiar voice. I wish you best of luck on your recovery. Oh, it's Potato Head, said Irina, nonchalantly with her mouth full. Kurogiri, you were supposed to report back an hour ago. What happened? Asked All for One. My apologies, Master, but young Izuku was ill. As an important member and strategist of the League of Villains, his well-being is of a higher priority, explained Kurogiri. Liar, you just wanted to pamper me because I was sick, thought Izuku, thinking back to how enthusiastic Kurogiri sounded when he was taking care of him. I see, said All for One. However, I came for a much bigger reason. According to outside sources, as of next year, All Might will be teaching at UA. The whole room went silent. Excuse me, Izuku exclaimed. Wait, why is that a bad thing? Asked twice. He used to be extremely easy to locate and lure out, explained Dabi. If he starts teaching at UA, then a huge chunk of his day will be spent protected behind the walls of one of the most secured locations on the planet, making our mission to kill him nigh impossible, deduced Sachi. Then we have to kill him before the end of this year, exclaimed Izuku. We can't, it's impossible, said All for One. We don't have nearly enough men nor firepower to deal with him in such a narrow time window. Then, what can we do? Asked Mr. Compress. There's one option I thought of, said All for One. Izuku, Toga, you two are around the appropriate age for high school. While Toga is actually a well-known serial killer, it's nothing a fake name and hairdo can't solve. What are you implying here? Asked Izuku. That you two infiltrate UA in order to keep a close eye on All Might. Izuku froze for a second to process his newly acquired info. What? Is something wrong? Asked All for One. I joined this league because I wanted to tear down Hero Society. Why must I, of all people, enter the one place where heroes are made? I can't do this. I have to refuse, Izuku exclaimed in anger. I understand your hatred, young Midoriya, but you must understand that you're playing a much bigger role than you think. If we have eyes on our target 24/7 without him realizing, it will bring us massive advantages for future endeavors, explained All for One. Must I explain what All Might did to me for you to understand? Exclaimed Izuku. He rejected me, called me worthless, took my broken heart and broke it into even smaller pieces. And now you're telling me I have to act like he's still my biggest hero. Upon hearing this, All for One let out a sigh of frustration. Of course you would, All Might, he muttered to himself, you dumbass. Izuku, Toga butted in. Not now, Toga, said Izuku. I still have some dirt I have to let out. You mustn't let your personal hatred get you, young Midoriya, said All for One. Perhaps it may not be clear to you, but he has the ability to transfer his quirk to another person. Upon hearing this, Izuku froze in shock, along with the other villains. Excuse me, the reason why he's teaching at UA is probably so he can find himself a new successor, explained All for One. And if he does so, then he will no longer be the only threat to our organization. So you're saying that there could be another All Might-like hero emerging in the near future? Exclaimed Izuku. Indeed, unless you stop it. Replied All for One. Of course, that is your choice, and I cannot enforce you anything. Whatever it you want to do, only you can truly stop yourself. However, I will let you know that if you do infiltrate UA, not only do you have the highest chance of killing him personally, but potentially even convince him you are a worthy successor. Upon hearing this, Izuku became even more conflicted. Would he even want that? The quirk, belonging to the man who stabbed him in the back while he was at his lowest point in life. I will give you until tomorrow for you to make up your decision. Until next time, Izuku, said All for One. And just like that, his shadowy silhouette disappeared from the screen, leaving Izuku with the hardest choice he has ever had in life. 36.2. Inko exclaimed in awe. In just a day. How did you make that quick a recovery? Lots of rest, I guess, Izuku replied, smiling. Wow, Inko muttered out, before hugging him. What a little champ you are, Izuku. Thanks, Mom, replied Izuku, but I better get going, or I'm gonna run late for school. Oh no, you're not, replied Inko defensively. You could hardly lift your arm just yesterday. Fevers don't go down that easy. At least rest a day to be sure you're really better. Mom, it's nothing. I assure you I'm fine, Izuku protested, attempting to get out of bed. Izuku, please, for your own well-being. Inko desperately tried to push him back in. Then at least let me go on a small walk, Izuku exclaimed. Fine, but not too far, okay. Inko agreed reluctantly. Thanks, Mom, Izuku replied, getting dressed as he went out. As she saw her son leave, Inko let out a light smile. Izuku's been out for longer and longer lately. She thought maybe he finally found new friends. If that's the case, then I guess he could stay out a little longer. As Izuku stepped out the door, however, he bumped into Kurogiri again, waiting for him by the sidewalk. Did the medicine work? Asked Kurogiri. What was in that stuff? Asked Izuku back. Classified information, replied Kurogiri. Apparently, the boss got it from an old colleague that he doesn't work with anymore. I see, replied Izuku. Anyways, you called me here because… All right, the mission, Kurogiri replied. The boss needs you to recruit more people for the league. The UA entrance exams are coming up and apparently All Might will be present to cheer on the examinees. With all the untrained would-be heroes and would-be hostages, it would be a perfect opportunity to strike, as even if we failed to kill All Might, we could at least drastically slow the growth of new heroes. And he chose me to recruit new members because you have a talent, young Midoriya, one to recruit anyone by pulling their strings. The boss believes in you, Midoriya, don't let him down, explained Kurogiri. All right, said Izuku, I'll assemble the squad, just tell me the targets. Back the Tom's Ramen shop, Izuku gave his men the rundown of their first mission with the league. So let me get this straight, said Sachi. He wants us to convince the Raijins to join the league as the front line to assault UA. Yeah, simple as that, replied Izuku. Are you nuts? You have heard of the things that villain group has done, right? Exclaimed Sachi. Which is exactly why they are gonna help us. All they want to do is destroy, correct? So why not have them destroy the UA entrance exam for us? Asked the young villain. What's so bad about them anyways? I bet they're just a bunch of posers, laughed Spinner. I wouldn't be so sure about that, said Dabi, taking a drink of beer. I've had my fair share of encounters with them and I can assure you, they are one of the last groups you want as an enemy. For a B generation group, they are much more powerful than you think. B generation? Asked Toga. What's that? Not sure. That's just what they call themselves, replied Dabi. Point is, I'm only in if you're certain the negotiation won't end up in a brawl. It's the name of any and all villain groups that were formed after All Might's Silver Age, explained Tom, who eavesdropped in on their conversation. Suddenly, everyone turned their attention to the shop owner as he resumed his plate cleaning duties. How do you know that? Asked Magni. It's common knowledge most A generation villains and villain groups know, replied Tom. You were a villain? Asked Izuku. You didn't know? Asked Sachi. No one here knew about the owner, Sachi, said Toga. Why'd you expect us to assume that he's a villain? I thought the vault door that's clearly been ripped off its frame hanging on the wall behind the counter was an obvious indicator, said Sachi. That's a door. I thought it was a very big hubcap, said Mr. Compress, getting a closer look. Wait, hold on, there's generations of villain group, Izuku asked Tom. What? You thought the criminal underworld was just full of people who decided one day to do crime? Trust me, there's a very clear power structure that composes the criminal underworld and keeps it in order. Without it, there wouldn't be a need for heroes, explained Tom. After all, heroes have a clear hierarchy to their world, so what makes you think villains are any different? I never knew, Izuku replied. Typical, replied Tom, putting down his plate. Most B-generation villains don't know about the structure either, which is why so many get caught and defeated only days after their debut. to us veterans. They are akin to arrogant youngsters who think they know better than us, that we veterans are out of date and out of touch and that they are much better, not paying attention to the fact that there's a reason why we veterans have lasted so long. Now tell me, does that sound familiar? Looking back, Izuku began to notice a pattern. The heroes he had fought until now, the ones he had helped defeat, all had two things in common. They have a history of shady conduct, and they were all very young, some only recently having obtained their license. Aloriel in particular, in fact, had his license suspended only 6 months after obtaining it. Exactly. Heroes. You want to know why so many of us older villains hate All Might so much more than the others? Because he embodies that youthful arrogance. Anyone can be a hero, he says, just do your best. He says, no, that's not what heroes are. Heroes are so much more than that. They are selfless, brave, and fight for justice, not sponsorship and brand recognition. They strive to make a better world, not one where they are praised. All Might may have brought hope to the hearts of many, not even I will deny that, but he also brought upon a generation blinded by prideful ignorance, ranted Tom, before realizing how much of a tangent he just went on. Looking at his customers, most of them were silenced. He put up a casual look on his face, but deep down, he was panicking. Did he sound too preaky? Did his rant get too personal? His palms were getting really sweaty as he was anticipating a "okay boomer" to be fired any minute now. However, that didn't happen. Instead, Izuku pulled out a notebook and looked at him with the eyes of a curious child. So tell me more about this power structure, he said, his eyes hungry for knowledge. He was beaming with excitement, like a child talking to Santa Claus. The sight of this boy was so cathartic that, in a mere second, Tom burst into tears. I quote him finally appreciated. He cried out, "Dear God, Tom, calm down," Sachi exclaimed. His tears are flying into my ramen. Panicked Arena. "Dear God, it's flooding the shop," yelled Spinner. "I can't swim, but I won't drown," said Twice, standing on the counter as the water level steadily rose. Later that day, Izuku's group were sent to the supposed meeting spot, an abandoned warehouse by the docks. The group leader had a few support gear equipped with him to deal with whatever gets thrown at him. With everyone prepared, they entered the building, expecting the worst. Inside, they found a group of about 50 or so men, all armed with knives and pipes, most of them mutant-type quirk users. As they were guided to the center of the room, meeting face-to-face with the group's leader, the rank villain Raid. He was a man in his mid-20s, spiky red hair with thick, hairy arms that failed to hide his well-defined muscle. A scar ran down the chiseled cheek, boosting his already intimidation stare, which were akin to that of a Doberman. "You must be the leader," said Izuku, extending his arm for a handshake. "It's an honor to meet you." However, the villain leader smacked his hand aside. "You've got some nerves, you know that?" asked the villain, "talking to me as if we're equals." Izuku tilted his head in confusion as Raid's goons laughed. "Oh boy, this kid's a riot," laughed one of the goons. "Don't you know? You have to kneel and wait for the boss to talk first, then reply. Small fries like you are not worthy of addressing Raid-sama directly. Only reply when given permission." "Are you kidding me? How much more egotistical can this guy get?" Spinner yelled out, causing the whole room to go silent. A vein bulged in the villain leader's head. "Excuse me," he asked. Sorry, I assure you, my subordinate didn't mean it." Izuku stuttered nervously, trying to stay on the guy's good side. But it was no use, as the man stood up from his chair, towering over Spinner, who was hardly even half his size. The villain bent down, casting a shadow over the lizard man, who started to tremble. "You have a sharp tongue for a mere lizard. Boy, I'll have you know that I'm proud of my lizard heritage, so don't you ever go dissing it like it's an insult." Spinner yelled back, "Aye." But before Spinner can continue, with lightning-fast speed, Spinner was lifted off the ground, grabbed by his own tongue. "I wonder, can lizards grow their tongue back?" he said. "Should be find out." "Hey, knock it off," Mr. Magni snapped, trying to separate the two. However, in her attempt to save Spinner, Raid turned around, hitting her in the stomach with a wicked jab as she dropped to her knees, coughing out blood. "Pathetic," laughed Raid. "And you came here to negotiate an alliance with us?" As Twice, Toga and Mr. Compress rushed to their two down comrades' aid, Izuku stared at him in disgust, as he had to be restrained by Dabi to make sure nothing drastic happened. "Please Izuku ... bear it," whispered Dabi. I know," Izuku grunted as Raid walked back towards him. "So, this is the supposed League of Villains," laughed Raid in a domineering voice. "The ones that suggested this alliance? Don't make me laugh. Raijin is the future of villainy, the group that will overthrow All for One, if he really exists, and become the real rulers of the criminal underworld. We have no place for weaklings like you." Meanwhile, the group could hear chattering going on in the room as Raid's thugs laughed at Spinner and Magnus' pain. "Did you see how pathetic they were?" laughed one of the thugs. "I know, right? And look at that fag's girly gestures. From which gay bar do you he got picked up from?" laughed another, pointing at Magni. However, just then, Toga got up, plunging a knife right into one of the thug's mouth. "You'd better watch your tongue. otherwise you'd lose it, said Toga, his smile no longer present. "Boss, hell man," the thug pleaded, as the knife's blade slowly dug between his teeth. However, Raid just gave him a look of indifference. Just then, with the flip of her wrist, Toga cut the tongue right out of the thug's mouth. "Jia, why hung? He hugga why ucking hung," he yelled in pain, collapsing, and his blood spewed from his mouth. "Disgusting," scorned Toga. "Your blood isn't even worth tasting." "Toga, we're here to negotiate, not fight," Izuku exclaimed. He was sadly too late, as other nearby crooks saw this and surrounded her. "Now you've done it, you bitch. We'll break your arms and legs and keep you as a public fuck toy," yelled one of the crooks as they activated their quirks, charging at the girl. However, before any of them could lay a hand on her, she leaped into the air, flipping over the closest assailant as she put him in a headlock before dragging him into an upcoming punch from a rock skin user, breaking that man's ribcage. Then, she slipped away, dodging a claw attack that cut open the back of her former hostage before slitting that attacker's wrist. "That slippery brat. Boss, help us out here," asked one of the thugs, turning around, expecting the boss to be pissed. However, Raid just laughed. "I like this girl. At least someone in this group some backbone," he exclaimed, getting up and walking towards the thug who asked for help. "Well, at least more backbone than you." "Boss, say, you do realize you just asked me to help take care of a little girl, despite you guys outnumbering her, have more weapons than her and more quirks than her?" he asked in a demeaning tone. But she's strong." Raid bent down again, caressing his subordinate's chin. "No, she's not strong," he said with a smile. Just then, a visceral sound resonated throughout the warehouse as Raid ripped off the thug's jaws as blood erupted from the man's lower mouth, his mouth dangling in the air. "You're just weak," Raid finished maliciously, before turning to his other subordinates. "Remember, rage in his for the top dogs only. What should the weak do? Glorify and worship us." The rest roared in unison, completely numb to their colleague, who was brutally gored in front of them. "I can't wait for them to die violent deaths," Dabi muttered under his breath. Izuku thought the very same. That smile of his, as he plucked off his subordinate's lower jaw like a Lego piece, was all too familiar to him. Looking back, it was almost the exact same one as Katsuki's, the one he had as he threw him out the window. Witnessing that firsthand to him was like seeing his past self get bullied in a third-person view. It disgusted him. "Now then, Mightless was it? It seems I have wrongly judged you. I guess your group may have some worth after all," said Raid, sitting back down on his chair. "You wanted to talk, right? So start talking." "Hey, Izuku, I've been wondering," Toga whispered. "Will Sachi and that German chick be fine?" "Don't worry about them," Izuku whispered back. "Focus on the now. They have a mission to fulfill. Let them fulfill it." Flashback. "Remember Sachi? From what I've heard, the boss of the group, Raid, has an electricity absorption quirk. The most electricity he absorbs, the stronger he gets. His villain costume is actually a redesigned electric chair, which multiplies his strength drastically when activated and is his pride and source of power. If destroyed, it may hurt his pride enough to bring him down. With him out of the picture, the rest of his group should be relatively easy to convert," explained Izuku. "So I want you and Arena to sneak into the warehouse, undetected, and destroy the suit." "Understood," said Sachi. "Hold on, why should I be taking orders from you?" asked Arena. "You got a problem with me being the boss?" asked Izuku. "Well, sorry for not understanding Japanese culture, but where I'm from, it's children who listen to adults," Arena growled. "Quit being so spoiled, sauerkraut," Toga butted in. "You stay out of this. I only came for the ramen." "I didn't agree to this," exclaimed Arena. "Come on, Rena," said Sachi. "Pretty please." "Sachi." Arena hesitated for a moment. However, a moment was enough for Izuku to pull a knife near Arena's neck. "I don't care what or how you're gonna do it, but you're gonna carry through your mission whether you like it or not. Are we clear?" asked Izuku. A drop of sweat fell down Arena's neck as she gulped. "Oh okay," she stuttered out. "You win this time." "We'll do our part, Izu bro," Sachi cheered on. "Why are you okay with this?" asked Arena. "'Cause he's my friend. Why else would I be doing this?" replied Sachi. End of flashback. Somewhere, near the back of the warehouse, the two other members from Izuku's group sneaked in, as Arena used her size manipulation quirk to shrink themselves down, allowing them to easily enter the ventilation shaft. "'Cause he's a friend. I don't think friends would go that far for each other," said Arena, still holding on to that comment. "You'd be surprised at how far friends would go to help each other out," replied Sachi, as the two continued to advance in the ventilation shaft. "Well, does he ever do anything for you then? If not, then this friendship you have with the kid is very one-sided," said Arena. "I mean, have you ever asked anything of him?" "What? Of course I have. Like that time Sachi froze. "Well, there was that time where ... Well, you never asked anything of him?" asked Arena. "I just don't know what to ask of him. He's smart, but it's not like I have 4 pages of homework I need him to do for me. He works hard to keep up both of his lives. I just want to support him," replied Sachi. Irina froze for a moment. But has he ever supported you? Asked Sachi. He shook his head. Has anyone ever supported you? She asked again. Well, there was my dad. Before he. Sachi stopped again. Come on. Let's not dwell on that. Mission first. No, you stop right now, Sachi. Irina exclaimed. You can't go your entire life acting as everyone's crutch. That's not how you gain friends. That's how you gain leeches, people that will take advantage of your kindness, Sachi. I just want to. However, before she can finish, she froze abruptly. What the hell am I saying? She muttered to herself, her face steaming red. Why the hell do I care about him so much all of a sudden? Come on, Irina, pull yourself together. Hey, Rena is everything Owl. You know, if you're gonna chat, do it where no one can hear you. A third voice cut in. Suddenly, a slash flew in between the two as the ventilation shaft was cut open, causing both of them to fall out. Luckily, Irina released her quirk, changing the two to normal size before impact. A little too big to be mice, aren't ya? The voice came continued. Who the hell are you? Asked Irina. Name's Butcher, the A-rank villain. I'm Raid's right-hand man, replied the villain. So, I guess you were looking for this. Pulling down an old curtain, the two stood in awe at the 15-feet-tall battle armor that stood before them. Metal scraps composed the center, as Tesla coils were seen protruding from the back. A beauty, isn't she? Thing can generate enough electricity to render power plants obsolete, laughed Butcher, and to think the boss found this thing in a junkyard. Upon closer inspection, however, he noticed a logo engraved on the left bicep region of the armor. Blue Jay. Why was that name so familiar to him? However, he couldn't think for long, as the villain guarding it suddenly dashed in, lunging at him. Look out! Irina yelled, charging at him, attempting to shrink the assailant down. However, before her hands could reach him, the butcher jumped over her, as pulled out his carving knives, trying to cleave her arm off. However, before he could bring the knife down, a red blast came flying at him as he raised one of his knives to block, knocking back a little. He's good, Sachi muttered, firing a barrage this time. However, a barrage was not enough to slow him down, as he weaved through the streams of bullets, catching up to him. However, this time, it was Irina who came in with the save, enlarging a piece of rubble behind her to rocket her towards the man, trying to shrink him down once again. However, the villain twisted himself in midair, narrowly dodging Irina's hand, kicking her aside. However, this left him open for Sachi to blast him with a 3-finger shot. While he managed to block the hit with his knife, the force of the attack sent him flying back, as he hit the wall hard enough to knock the wind out of him. Had enough yet? Asked Sachi, panting. Hediha. The butcher laughed. Not bad, I have to admit, for you two to take on a B-rank villain. However, don't get too cocky now, after all. Suddenly, the villain vanished in the blink of an eye, appearing right below Sachi. You never know whether your enemy's going all out or just holding back. He laughed, as he sunk his cleaver into Sachi's shoulder. Go. Sachi grunted in pain, collapsing. Sachi, Irina cried, only to get kicked in the stomach, collapsing. Did you really think that just because my name's Butcher that I'd have a blade or cutting-related quirk? He laughed, throwing his cleaver past Irina, before he suddenly appeared behind her, holding the cleaver up to her neck. It ain't so simple, buddy. Butcher quirk, fast travel. A user can teleport towards any object they previously held in their hand as long as they can remember fondly what said object looks like. Now then, what to do with you? Oh, an even better idea. Why not let the boss decide? He laughed. What? You want us to attack UA? Don't make me laugh, said Raid. Don't get me wrong, we would love to get our hands on that damn school, but not in your name. We do as we please. Having a set date plus a predetermined plan is too boring for our taste. Cause planning ahead totally never worked in the past, Izuku said in a sarcastic tone. Oh please, the fact that there needs to even be a plan just shows your group's weakness. Look at you, kid. Wearing a mask to conceal your identity, working in the shadows, all signs of a coward. The Ragens need to be seen. They need to be heard. You're just chicken. Izuku fist tightened in rage. Geez, how far up his own ass is this guy? I'm actually starting to miss all hand face. At least he looked funny, thought Izuku. I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you, said Raid. The League joins us, then. We call all the shots during the UA attack, but you guys get to decide the day. And why is it that you decide it all? Asked Izuku. Because I'm strong. And here, only the strongest can decide what to do. Izuku let out a sigh of resignation. It seems there's really no getting through with you, said Izuku. Oh boy, here we go. Dabi commented. What's this? You said it, didn't you? Only the strongest gets to decide who does what. So if I beat you, I control your group, said Izuku. A moment of silence followed, from both the League and the raging group. Suddenly, laughter erupted, as Raid stood up, eyeing him down. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. What the hell are you gonna? Blue Jay support gear number 12, Impact Knuckles. Suddenly, a loud crack was heard, as the villain boss was sent flying several feet back. The room went silent, flabbergasted by the sight of their boss, a 6'8" giant, getting punted like a sandbag by a kid nowhere near his size. "You still wanna go?" asked Izuku, the support gear wrapping around his knuckles like a glove, as the rest of his members readied themselves for battle. As Raid got up with a bloody nose, his eyes went bloodshot red as he walked back towards the kid, more pissed than ever. "How dare you, men, tear them apart," he yelled, as everyone in the room charged at the League. Suddenly, a massive blast of blue flame erupted, frying dozens of thugs. "Hey now, you really think a few thugs will be enough to take us on?" asked Izuku. "Everyone, kick their asses." "Right," the rest of the League replied, as they went on the offensive. Dabi immediately fired another blast of flame, cremating 2 more thugs. Just then, one of the thugs retaliated with ice. "I'll have you know that my ice quirk is the strongest there is. Prepare to become a human popsicle," he yelled. Before he was even done laughing, the flames overpowered his ice blast, vaporizing the thug. "Tisk, my little brother can create stronger ice in his sleep," scoffed Dabi. Seeing this, some of the thugs back off. "No way. He just killed Flash Freeze, one of our executives," uttered one of the thugs. "I'm outta here." Another band of thugs huddled together behind him, charging up their multiple quirks. "Heh, so what? Flash Freeze was the weakest of the executives anyways. He probably just got cocky," said one of the thugs. "But let's see how he fares against all of these attacks at once." Just then, Dabi felt something grab its leg. Looking down, he saw a thug with a mole quirk, holding him in place. "Now you won't be able to dodge," laughed the mole man. "Fire now." "Die," the thugs yelled in unison, firing an assortment of sharpened stones, spikes, glass shards or such. In response, Dabi simply used both hands as his attack, while stopping briefly, burned through all of the attacks, not only wiping out the thugs who launched the blast, but also setting fire to the entire warehouse. Seeing this, the mole man quickly let go of him, digging himself deeper into the ground. "I can't believe this. He's a monster. I'll leave him to the other executives," he said to himself. Suddenly, he felt a breeze behind him, as if he was suddenly moved to the surface. However, this breeze was followed by extreme pain, as he collapsed dead, his entire backside missing. Behind him, a massive hole was dug out, and a pearl rested at the center. "Damn, I got someone with that. I see bits of human flesh in this pearl. Oh well," said Mr. Compress, tossing the pearl at a group of thugs, as the contents of the pear was released, crushing several thugs to death. Meanwhile, Twice ran while screaming like a girl from a fatter thug, who was trying to strike him with a scimitar. Guys, help me. I got this under control," exclaimed Twice, ducking under another swing. "Get back here, you," yelled the thug, as one of his slashes managed to slice off a part of Twice's mask. "Nuo, I'm splitting," Twice uttered out, clutching his exposed face. "Not yet, but soon you will be," the thug replied, lifting his scimitar, splitting in two that is. However, as swung down, Twice was able to find a nearby piece of cloth to cover his exposed face, as his personality soon returned. Dodging the scimitar strike, Twice pulled out his wrist ruler, slicing open the thug's neck. "But now I'm well again," he said, striking a pose. "Oh good," said Spinner, who watched the whole thing unfold. "I was afraid I was gonna have to intervene." "Die, you lizard," yelled a few thugs charging him. "Shut it," Spinner yelled back, slicing through them. "Damn it, they're just 6 lowly crooks. Why can't we beat them?" yelled one of the thugs. Just then, 5-figure walked in. "That's 'cause you're not trying hard enough," said one of them. We still have around 20 men, plus the reinforcements outside." "Then there's us," said another. "The executives." "Guys, the executives are here," cheered the thug. "Who the hell are these bozos?" asked Magni, who crushed another enemy with her magnet. B-rank villain, Poison Blade, killed 6 people during a bank robbery. 4 of them died instantly and the 2 others died in the hospital. Introduced one of them. B-rank villain, Mad Bull, former boxer who killed his 3 last opponents. First one on accident, the others very intentionally. Followed another, B-rank villain, Rapid Fire, responsible for shooting up 2 schools and 5 shopping malls. My head count is well over 50. C-rank villain, Wire, name a fraud, I've committed it. F-rank villain, Dumbass Mustache, crime, having a big dumb mustache, said the last one. Bear Killer, what the hell are you talking about? Asked Rapid Fire. Suddenly, the supposed bear killer turned to his colleagues with a haunting smile, slicing Wire's throat open with a knife before stabbing Mad Bull in the shoulder. "Bear Killer, what are you doing?" yelled Poison Blade. "Guys, that's not me," yelled a man that looked identical to the villain that emerged from behind a pile of boxes covered in stab wounds. "This girl jumped me and nearly killed me ahhh." Before he could finish, the supposed executive was lit up in a blast of blue flames. Just then, the imposter melted away, revealing Toga underneath. "Damn it, have a taste of my poison knife." Poison Blade, trying to stab Toga. However, before he could, he was pulled back by Magni, who used her quick slam his head into her magnet, causing blood to pour out before she swung said magnet like a bat, smashing him through the wall. As Toga continued her assault on Mad Bull, rapid fire pulled up behind her. Not a smart move, allowing a gun wielder to get distance. "I'll fill you with lead," he yelled. However, before he could do anything, his top half was compressed into a pearl from behind. "And a dumb move on your part to turn your back on a magician," replied Mr. Compress. As Mad Bull was eventually taken out too by Toga, the league started to regroup as the fire Dabi started was really getting back. "Did you really have to go this far with the flames?" coughed Toga, as it was becoming harder and harder to breathe. "Well, excuse me, I can't exactly tell my fire not to burn what I don't want to burn," replied Dabi. "We failed this mission, didn't we?" asked Mr. Compress. "I mean, look around. Is anyone here still alive?" "We have a dozen or so thugs still," said Spinner, "but I dunno, they look way too scared to listen to us." However, looking at the remaining thugs, something was off. They weren't scared of them, but what was behind them? Turning around, they saw Izuku, heavily injured and badly beat up, lying in a small crater. "Izuku!" Toga cried out, running for him. Just then, a cleaver flew in front of her, stopping her in her tracks. "I would advise you stay where you are," a voice said, "unless you want your friends to die." Turning around, they saw Sachi and Arena, don't badly injured as well and down on the ground. "Sachi, Arena," yelled Spinner, only for the villain to bring his knife closer to their necks. "Oh no you don't," said the villain. "You wouldn't want my hand to slip, would you?" "But if they are here," Magni uttered. "Then that means..." Suddenly, the sound of mechanical whirs filled the room as Raid descended, fully juiced up in his armor, his body having absorbed so much electricity that he grew from 6 feet 8 to 8 feet 6, as electricity oozed out of his body. "You've really done it now, kid," he grunted. "I'll kill both you and your league." "Get away from him," exclaimed Toga, still charging, as Butcher decided to kill one of his hostages to get the message across. He was stopped by Raid. "No, let this be a lesson to them," he said, pulling back his fist. "Toga, get away," Izuku uttered. "Gigavolt fist." "Izuku," Toga cried. "MJOLNIR." A massive punch followed, as the shockwave sent Toga flying, before tearing through the rest of the league. It didn't stop either, as it blew a massive hole through the warehouse, one at the size of nearly the entire wall, as the shockwave traveled through the entire warehouse, eating through the nearby abandoned building feet away, ripping fire hydrants out of the ground and knocking over street lamps, before finally stopping after knocking over a tree nearly 200 feet away from the original point. As the dust settled, the flames got even stronger from the generated wind blast, as Raid fanned away nearby dust to see the damage he caused. As he expected, that punch took out most of the league, rendering almost all of them unable to fight and at the mercy of Dabi's own flames. That ought to teach him," laughed Raid. "I'll have you know, with this suit, my power is equal to that of all mites, and you bunch thought you ever had a chance." "Indeed, this is why Raid is the greatest," exclaimed Butcher, emerging from his cover. "He is the strongest of them all. Now then, seeing how you did just take out over half of my old gang, I'm willing to make a deal with you, Izuku," laughed the villain, picking up Izuku's limp body. "You work for me, and I will spare your friends." Izuku remained silent. "Hey, you listening, kid? Or are you too scared to talk after what you've witnessed?" Izuku's fist clenched. "This is how you recruited everyone else, right?" asked Izuku, now with words, but by force. "Is that so? What do you think? That I pulled a Martin Luther King and talked them to joining me? Laughable. They joined me because I showed them that they were backing the right horse. With this power, you can make anyone do whatever they want." Hearing this, Izuku chuckled. "Funny, you sound just like a friend of mine. One who uses brute force to get everything. One who thinks any problem can be solved by just blowing it up," said Izuku, because deep down, he knew he had nothing else to his name. Because without power, he is nothing. Raid's smile disappeared. "Oh, did I hit a nerve?" laughed Izuku. "I knew it. Under all that muscle, you're just a scared little boy, an empty shell with absolutely zero redeemable quality." "Shut up, take away the power, and you're just as small and weak as me," laughed Izuku. "And that's saying something, considering that I'm quirkless." That last pass snapped him. "Die," yelled Raid, bringing down his fist. Izuku closed his eyes in anticipation. Like with Katsuki, having experienced this before, he already knew what to expect. First came the yelling, then came the pain. Smack. But the pain never came. "Well said, kid," spoke a familiar voice. "What? Someone stopped by Mjolnir," exclaimed Raid. "You did well, now leave the rest to me," said the man. Sachi looked up, as his eyes widened at what he saw. That old bastard still got it. He laughed. "Who the hell are you?" asked Raid. Suddenly, Raid felt a sharp pain, as he was punched in the stomach, sending him flying back. "A real villain, Tom," Sachi cheered, his eyes in tears. "The shopkeeper," Izuku uttered. "Knowing the villains these days, I was 99% sure you weren't gonna get through to him." replied Tom, so I came. Who the hell are you, old man? Asked Raid. Don't you know who I am? Me. I'm just a 65-year-old geezer with a beer belly, plaited blue shirt, a thick bushy black bear who runs a ramen shop, replied Tom, and from the looks of it, you're childish brat who's taken too many vitamin gummies. You, Raid grunted, as letting out an explosion of electricity what shattered all the windows of the warehouse. I quote hell I'll kill you. Tom, please, run away, uttered Dabi, still barely conscious. Don't worry about him, Dabi, said Sachi, he'll be fine. As Raid charged him, his fist ready, Tom's arms suddenly bulged up, nearly tripling in volume, as he stopped the Raid's punch dead in its tracks, releasing a shockwave that instantly put out all of the fires. Because in his prime, he was one of All Might's greatest enemies. Just then, Tom retaliated, punching Raid in the stomach so hard, it lifted the man off the ground. However, Raid fought back by hitting Tom in the face with a straight jab, followed by a hit to his ribs and to his chest. Tom powers through, punching Raid in the face, staggering him as the two began rapidly exchanging fists. So, you claim you can take on All Might in this suit, huh? Asked Tom, as he slowly started to overwhelm Raid, pushing him back in the exchange. Then you must be seriously out of touch with reality if you think All Might is that weak. The wind generated by the two fighters started to tear not only the entire warehouse apart, but the entire street surrounding it. A wind so intense, Izuku and the others were struggling to even get close. Whoa, unreal, uttered Spinner. They are so fast, said Dabi in awe. Pulling back his fist, Tom went on the full offensive, pummeling Raid with punches so fast, each of them broke the sound barrier as the armor was slowly deteriorating. Raid, throwing a Hail Mary, managed to land one solid blow however in Tom's lower rib, allowing him to fly in a few good hits back. He's going all out even though he's past his prime. Sachi thought, those aren't just stray punches he's getting hit by either, they're targeted, and each and every one of them. He briefly remembered the result of Raid's attack earlier, is more than 100% of Raid's full power, letting out an even stronger punch than before. Raid heard a crack as he landed a punch square to Tom's ribs. To his shock, however, it was his hand that broke, not the former, as Tom puffed his chest up, knocking him off balance. What's wrong? You seem scared, Tom yelled, sending him flying back with a punch. But a real villain should always keep composure, even when things don't go their way. Dashing in after him, he grabbed Raid by the wrist, flinging him high into the air, smashing him through the ceiling, before jumping up to him and spiking him back down to the ground. Everyone stared in awe, including Izuku, who jolted back at the sight. Just then, Tom dropped back down before Raid could even recover. Now for a lesson. One you're probably disgusted by, said Tom, but I'll show you it applies to everyone. His arm bulged up even more, as steam was emanating from his body. Go beyond. Plus, the punch connects. Ultra. With that finishing blow, Raid's entire armor was shattered, as he was sent flying not only out of the warehouse, but out of sight altogether. The League of Villain, Izuku included, watched in awe as Tom, still holding his pose, slowly deflated, his muscles retracting. Just so you know, Raid, All Might could have beaten you in 5 hits with that kind of power, he said, and if it were my prime, it would have only taken 3. Unbelievable, uttered Butcher, dropping his cleaver. Just who the hell is he? One of the most powerful rank villains of the former generation, the Bank Breaker, Tom, replied Sachi. A rank? Then how powerful were the S ranks? Uttered Butcher. Well, technically, his strength was worthy of S rank. He just didn't lead any villain groups and always worked alone, thought Sachi. You see it, don't you, Izuku? Asked Sachi, looking at Izuku. Just then, Butcher dropped his cleaver. I'm done. I guess villainy just isn't for me, he said, attempting to run. Hold up, said Izuku, sitting back up. We defeated your boss, didn't we? Oh god, Butcher muttered. So, you want to join us? Asked Izuku. And no, of course not, said Butcher, before shriveling in fear. I mean, of course. Yes, please don't hurt me. Well, too bad I guess. Come on guys, let's go, said Izuku. Wait, you're not forcing us to join you? Asked Butcher as some of the thugs got up, the surviving ones at least. Who do you think we are, your old boss? Izuku laughed as the group walked off. So, does that mean they are actual friends? Asked one of the thugs. As the rest of the thugs started to chatter, Butcher looked at the group in awe. Perhaps I should have joined them,